A lot of stuff to cover. First off, the students that are here today that didn't make it last week, we have handouts that you didn't receive, so when you get a chance, see Tim, and he'll get you the handouts, okay, for your class that you missed last week. Okay? Mute your phones. Did everybody turn in their tests? Mute your phones. Did everybody sign in? Okay. All right, next week, you have no tests again. Oh my gosh. But you still have chapter 14 to read. Okay? Now last week I passed out a formula for calculating your fertilizer. And I told you that that was going to be covered this week. It's not going to be covered this week. It's going to be covered at his next class. So, I don't know. So you can study that formula a little bit more. Okay?
Isn't there a test in chapter 14?
That's what it says here. Ken Cochran, chapter 14.
Okay. All right.
So,
Heard it from him.
hello, come on now. Now hello? Let's keep the conversations down now today because Dennis Hale has a lot of stuff to cover. All right? Questions on what he's talking about is fine, but as far as talking between each other, come on, let's kind of keep it down, okay? So, Dennis Hale's here. Dennis, come on up here, buddy. Where you at?
Dennis is right over here. Does everybody have a top performers handout list?
No.
Right here, sitting over here. Do you need one? Anybody else need one? You got a top performers. You betcha. Anybody else has one? Okay.
All right. Our speaker for today is Dennis. Hello. Our speaker today is Dennis Hale. He's going to be talking about top performers. So a lot of good information. He's going to do his best he can to get it all in. But there's a lot of stuff. So please pay attention to him so you can learn some of that stuff. Okay? And then when he gets done, we'll have our next speaker. Okay, any questions? Okay. All right, Dennis, you're up, buddy.
I put it over there last time, but I put a jump drive. I can put it on there and get it.
I'll put those back over here so they can check with you on that. Hey, Tim. I happen to have one.
All right, guys, if y'all, we're going to get going. I am going to talk about top performers. I'm doing landscape design basics. Don't even read your schedule of what I'm doing, because I haven't got anything I'm supposed to do when I'm doing it. Y'all had the first class messed up, so we changed the first class. We're going to take 3.5 hours today, and we're going to cram on 1 hour and 55 minutes. That's what we're doing. So if you have any questions, really, just hold it to yourself until the breaks are the end, and I'll just answer them individually. Otherwise, we're going to run too long. So let's, oh, I'm not looking at anybody, really. All right, landscape design. The basic thing you need to realize is you need to blend your house in with the existing landscape. For instance, if you live in Corpus Christi and you have a beautiful coastal home with a beautiful coastal type landscape, palm trees, tropicals and all that, that's beautiful. It doesn't fit in the hill country. It doesn't fit the scheme of the hill country, and the plants don't fit the hill country. They're going to die. So you need to basically fit your home into the existing landscape and not try to change the landscape. It was here first. So that's very important. And secondly, careful consideration of the home, property, size of the yard. Some of the biggest problems we see are in towns. You've got a postage stamp front yard. The builder puts 2 oak trees in there, 6 shrubs. It looks good for about 2 years. Then the oak trees start to grow together. Within 10 years, they've overwhelmed your house. You've got to design your landscape based on the size of your property. And most of y'all overplant everything. And so you end up with a bunch of crap out there that you're having to thin out. So don't overplant. You can always add. It's a lot harder to take it away. And secondly, you need to look at the size of your house. If you've got a 2-story house, you're not going to plant a bunch of dwarf plants in front of a 2-story house. They're going to be dwarfed in front of that 2-story house. At the same time, if you have a 1-story house, you're not going to plant a white notches crepe myrtle that gets 55 foot tall in front of your 1-story house. And you go, well, it's a crepe myrtle. Aren't they all the same size? No. There's crepe myrtles that are full grown this size. There's crepe myrtles that get 55 to 60 feet tall. So you need to pay attention to what you're planting. I always say on the chemicals, read the damn label. Tell on the plants, read the damn tag. Okay, if it says it's going to get 6 by 6 and you suck at horticulture, you're still going to get 5 by 5. But people say, well, I didn't realize it's going to get that big. It's only that big in that 1 gallon pot. True, but it said right there on the tag, 6 by 6. And you put 4 of them in, something the size of this table, because they were little 1 gallon pots at the time. So you really need to study the size of your property, the size of your home, the size of your lot, and plan those plants and plantings to fit that so that you're not overwhelmed in a very short period of time. Excuse me, Ruthie knows, I've got stock show crud.
Me too.
I did all in San Antonio. I worked with Ruthie for a week in San Antonio. I did a week in Austin, and now I do this, and I go to Kerrville, and we do a week in Houston. So I'm just breathing stock show barn ducks. It's on landscape design. Color is very important. Screw that, okay? We're in Texas. You get any color you can get in August that you can get. Landscape companies, well, let's look at the color wheel because golds and purples and whites go together, and reds and yellows and oranges go together. Yeah, they do. But in August in Texas, I don't care if it's black and green. If it's color, it goes together. And so don't get overly concerned about, well, I really hate that color. It might not blend really well with that color in my planting. If it's blooming in July and August, you take it. So don't get overly hung up about color. I do want to say things like, we'll get back to like that white crepe myrtle. If you have a white rock home, you're not going to plant a white crepe myrtle up against it. Yeah, that white crepe myrtle is beautifully when it's blooming. But it's against a white rock home, it doesn't have much difference in the color. So those are true, but color schemes where you're blending colors together, that's great if you're planting annual flowers. But in the landscape, if it gives you color, you plant it. Don't be concerned. Now, Ryan is one thing. Y'all got a speaker here a little bit later going to talk about compost and making compost. Man, that's wonderful. Compost is a wonderful thing. And everybody's proud of their compost pile. But that's probably not the one thing you want your person walking up to your house to direct their eyes to right off the bat is your wonderful compost pile with some of your salad stuff from last night in there and stuff like that. It's wonderful and it's a wonderful thing, but you want to build your landscape that when people walk up, you have their eyes go where you want them to and not directed towards towards your trash cans and your compost pile or those kinds of things. And then form can be expressed through trees and shrubs of various shapes and sizes. I guess one of my biggest things is nature is various sizes. You don't just see all live oak trees out in nature. You're going to see live oak trees, you're going to see Texas persimmons, you're going to see agaritas, you're going to see all these different sized plants, different sizes and shapes. We don't want to go back to the 70s landscapes, okay? Waxleaf ligustrum, boxwoods, Monkey grass, all perfectly trimmed, flat, square, 90 degrees. Those days are over. And thank God, I hope they're never coming back. And those plants I just mentioned, those are all from China. I have nothing against China when I get political. But those plants are all from China. They're not really even well adapted to our area. So we're moving those types of plant out. But form is basically, you need to have a landscape with different shapes and sizes in there, just to complement, just like nature is. Texture, same thing with sizes. All those plants I just named have different leaf sizes and shapes. You take an agarita is not the same leaf shape as a live oak, which is not the same leaf shape as a mountain laurel or whatever. You want plants of different leaf shapes. That gives you texture. Remember, nature doesn't have all one plant. Now, we do have people in the hill country that'll move in these lots and they'll grind all the rocks down. Well, why the hell you moved to the hill country? You knew the rocks were there already. Now let's just grind them all down and make a caliche pad. And then they tell the guys, take everything out but the live oak trees. Take the persimmons, the mountain laurels, all this out. Folks, I'm just not in a good mood today. Well, that's the stupidest thing you can do. My God, number one, you took out Texas persimmons worth thousands of dollars a piece. Mountain laurels worth thousands of dollars. And you left one species. If oak wilt moves in, you have 0 species. And so, folks, nature balances itself by having plants of different types, shapes, and sizes so that if a disease does hit, that plant may go away, but other plants are there that you don't have a bare landscape. So we need to, you always have this look on your face like, she always has this look like, no, you she's always got this like, does her hands like, I'm concerned about what he says. She wants to ask a question, so go ahead. I can just tell.
Okay.
Okay.
If a wilt comes in, won't it affect everybody and not everything?
No, oak wilt only affects live oak trees. It doesn't affect Texas persimmons, mountain laurels, agaritas. It affects oak trees.
Just the,
Just oak trees. So see, that's what I'm saying. If those people that take everything out but just the live oaks or the red oaks, that's great, except something like live oak or oak wilt hits and it kills all your oak trees, which if you've ever been around some of the hill countries, you'll see that. And now you have nothing and you have to start all over. So that lot you bought for $250,000 because it had all these beautiful plants, now has 0 plants on it, and your lot's worth about $40,000. But guess what? The taxing entity is still booking it at $250,000 plus the house that's on it. We have houses in our subdivision that were selling for $1.5 million. Whoa. They cleared everything out, just had the oak trees. Oak wilt hit some of the lots, killed all the oak trees. Those lots can't get $500,000 for the house and the lot right now. Because people say, why do I want to do this? I can go to a new subdivision and start all over. So we have to think about that. All right, the 3 biggest problems or concerns in landscape. Size like what? Size. Let's say you're starting with a newer landscape or you're going to put in some new plants. What starts off out of a 1 or 5 gallon pot is going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. That's only natural. So a lot of what you put in your landscape that fits today may not fit later. And here's what I have a problem. And I have a landscape company, so I can say that one of the biggest mistakes landscape companies make or people make. When you pay a landscape company $30,000 to do a landscape, when they leave, you want it to look finished, right? No, you don't want it to look finished. If it looks like all the plants are really full in there and fitting wonderfully, in 3 to 5 years they're going to be overgrowing each other. Well, landscape companies, though, plants are cheap. I can buy a wholesale plant for $3. Y'all can't, but we can. So plants are not the expense to put in a landscape. So we like to put in a lot of them. So when I leave, you're really happy. You got your $30,000. Look at all the plants I got. It looks really complete, full, and pretty. And in 3 to 5 years, you're taking about every 3 or 4 of those plants. You're just taking them out because they've overgrown each other. So plants are going to get bigger. You need to plan for that. Don't be afraid. If your landscape looks completely finished and full when you get through with a brand new landscape, you planted it too thin because it's going to get bigger. Light. Most landscapes go from some aspect of full sun to as they mature, more shade, more shade. Because what do most people want on their landscape for sure? Trees. Most people want trees. That's a given. Most people want trees. Trees, we moved into a landscape that had 60 oak trees. They were already mature and big, so we kind of know how our light is. But most people are going to move in, they're going to plant some trees. It's going to start off with full light, and it's going to go to a little bit of shade, more shade, more shade. That's okay. You're saying, well, I might have to change some of my landscape plants. Yes, you might have to over time. That plant that needs full sun may over time, and it may be 15 years, have to be changed out for a plant that gets better with part shade. So light's going to change on your landscape. And then finally, water. We are getting hotter and drier. Fact. No politics. Fact. You go to call A&M meteorology, and they have shown, like we talked about, we're getting hotter and we're getting drier. And so our droughts are going to get a little more intense, and the heat's going to get a little more intense. So we have to be cognizant of water. But we do not live in the desert. We don't live in Arizona or New Mexico. We can't go in and plant all the yuccas and agaves. Because remember the real cold spell we had, the last one? Have you seen some of the agaves that aren't adapted to this area? They are dead, and they are not coming back. There's only 2 agaves that are really adapted in this area that can make it year in, year out. We'll discuss that later. But anyway, we're not in the desert, so we can't just go, well, we'll just put a desert landscape in. Because when we do get those rainy spells or cold spells, either one, we can kill a lot of those desert plants. So we have to be cognizant of water and the use of water, but we can't just say, well, we'll just put all desert plants in and we'll solve that. That's not the answer. Okay, we're going to create a plan. Y'all are going to create a plan. We're going to talk about it in April sometime. I don't care if you own a home that's already got a landscape in it and all you're doing is making changes, or if you built a new house and you're starting with a new landscape, or you have an older home and you're taking a bunch of the landscape out and put a bunch in, or you've got a new project. I don't care. The first thing you need to do is plot your property. And that's things like, where's the gas lines if you have underground water lines, gas lines? Where's the electric lines? Those kinds of things. You need to know where those are before you start digging or planting, those kinds of things. We want to plot the structures, obviously. That's pretty stupid if you don't know that. You got a house, you may have a storage building. Those things that are there, they're permanent, they're not moving. And it could be a garden. You could have a garden built in there that's where my garden's going. It's always going to be there, or a greenhouse. Be sure to put those in. And then any natural areas like, do you have an area that backs up to a green area? Or is the back, maybe you own an acre and you're only going to landscape a small portion of it. The rest of it's going to be more natural. Go ahead and plot that. You're not going to change that at all. Here's just an example, a real simple little drawing. Easements are a biggie. If you have an easement, you better respect it, okay? We tell a quick story. We're going to tell it real quick this year. But we have an easement in front of our subdivision, which means it's 20 foot there where that's utility easements and that. That means they can come in there and do work there, and if there's something there, they'll remove it. Our next door neighbor built a circular drive, put 4 rock columns with lights on there. As you drive in a circular drive, the gentleman from New Braunfels showed up and said, you can't put those there, the code compliance. And, well, I've already done it. He said, well, yeah, but the problem is they're on the street. They need to be set back on the easement. Well, they fought over it for a while, and the code compliance guy said, we'll leave it. No problem. We'll leave it. And I know the code compliance guy pretty well. If you do landscape, you know the code compliance guys real well. And he had to stop by. He saw me outside. He said, hey, Dennis, how you doing? I said, well, doing good. His name's Bob. I said, Bob, you kind of lost that one. He said, yeah, I lost the battle, but I'll win the war. And he said, I told him, I said, if we have to do any easement work, we're going to tear those rock columns down and leave them laying, and you're going to have to get them up. And if you put new ones up, you're going to have to go back to the easement line because now you've been notified. Now if you don't do it, you're breaking the law. Within 30 days, they purposely did easement work there. Tore them down. So don't screw us with easements, okay? You're going to lose. Don't put a fence up there or permanent buildings because they're going to do some easement work at some point. But again, where's your electric lines? I do see people that go, Dennis, I planted the tree away from the house like you said. I didn't plant it too close. Most people plant plants, especially trees, too close. Boy, I did such a good job. I'm standing there, And I look up and I go, yeah, but you planted it right under the electric line from, some people have underground electric and some people have a pole. You planted it under the electric line from the pole to the house. And yeah, it's not that close. It will be. And y'all all seen the trees in the city where they cut the beautiful V out of them, you know, to make them look so natural. The electrical lines are up there. So you need to get that drainage. Drainage is important in this county. It's really important in the hill country because water moves so quickly. But in a lot of this county, drainage is important because you may have areas after a good rain that just stands in water. And you need to know that because you don't want to put certain parts of your landscape. For instance, let's say you wanted to put a little fruit orchard in, some peach trees and pear trees and apple trees and so on. So if you have an area that stands in water after a good rain, that is not the area to plant that part of your landscape. All those plants are going to die. So you need to get that. Obviously, gas lines. You can go. I think it's 311. You can call and they'll tell you where all the lines are for free. You don't want to find out where your gas line is as you dig for it. That's just not really good. Anyway, get all that drawn up. It can be real simple. I see these plans when we go over them. I see some people, boy, they bring them like they were done on a computer, which is fine. I see some of them look like they did it on a napkin at the Dairy Queen, that's what they got there. And that's fine. We did ours when we moved into the house. We kind of put it into phases. And I think we did like 5 phases, and we're on phase 3, and we're done. We're not doing phase 4 or 5. Remember, everything you put in your landscape becomes maintenance. Well, I want an outdoor entertainment area. Great. Now you're going to have to maintain it. Well, I want water features. That's great. Now you're going to have to maintain it. Well, I want an herb garden and a garden. No problem. Remember, everything. Now it goes from when your hobby becomes a chore, it's not fun anymore. Also, like we told everybody, I know, hard to believe, but none of us are getting younger. We're all getting older. So what you do at 40, you may not want to do at 60. And so you need to remember, go slow with your plan. You don't need to put it in all at one time. It looks beautiful, and then all of a sudden you go, oh crap, I have to maintain this. Or you say, I don't have to maintain it, I'll hire someone to maintain it. Oh crap, you know, it gets expensive. So you need to think about that when you're planning a landscape. All right, we need to consider wind and rainfall. One of the biggest problems I see with people moving into the state of Texas, they don't realize if you're going to be outside in the summer, you need a southeast breeze. That's the breeze you need. We get a lot of people from California, especially, not just people from California, but the climate in a lot of that area is completely different. And they don't want the southeast breeze. But when you get to Texas, you do want the southeast breeze. So you need to know where, I've been to people's place and go, okay, where's north? I don't know. I mean, they stand on their own property and don't know. Well, it'd be good to, yeah, it'd be good to know. If you only got 4 choices, pick one. Pick one. They don't know where, so they don't really know, even when they're building a house, they're going, I didn't think about when we built our house, the west sun just hits the whole front of our house all afternoon. And it gets really hot and so and so. So you need to consider where's the direction from. Soil condition, we've talked a little about soil condition already. When you do compost, that'll help some of the soil condition, and we'll have that covered later. But anyway, here in the hill country, especially, natural slopes is very important. From the front, we have 2 acres, and like I said, it drops 48 feet from one end to the other. That's 5 stories. So we need to pay attention to slope. When water gets to moving, it moves quick. A lot of this county, it's not slope, it's low spots. And when it does rain, it stands for long periods of time. So you need to know where are those areas, and obviously you would either avoid them or plant things in those areas that can handle a higher water content. Okay? Sun and shade. Someone will come out and they'll say, Ruthie, I'll just pick on Ruthie because I know Ruthie so well. Ruthie said, Dennis, I know Ruthie's a big gardener. She goes, I want to put a garden and an herb garden in. Well, let's do an herb garden first. I come out to Ruthie's house, I go, Ruthie, how much sun does this get? And Ruthie might actually know it. And she may say, it gets 6 hours of sun a day. Well, okay. Is it morning sun or evening sun? Now, Ruthie would know this, but a lot of people go, well, I don't know. Well, folks, there's a big difference between morning sun and evening sun. An herb garden can make it with 6 hours of morning, 6 hours of sun, mainly being morning sun, and then evening shade. That same herb garden is not going to make it with morning shade and 6 hours of sun being mainly evening sun when it gets to be 100 degrees in the summer. So, how much sun does the area get? And is it morning sun or evening sun? That's very important. And I don't get too concerned. Everybody knows that the sun shifts a little bit in the fall and winter. I mean, like, it'll catch, the west sun will kind of catch our front door a little bit in the summer, but in the winter it never catches our front door. I don't get too concerned about that. I mainly want to know how much sun you get mainly in late spring through summer. Those are the months that are going to be the ones that can cause the most problem. And then, again, we talked about earlier, look at every angle of the house. What are the areas I want to highlight? And what are the areas I want to downplay? Like I said, if I have a compost garden or compost pile where my trash cans are also stored in that, that's probably not the area I want everybody to walk up and say, that's my first view of my house. Here's another problem I have with landscape companies. A beautiful landscape yard is created for enjoyment. Consult every family member and then find out what their needs are. Is it, do you have kids? Do you have grandkids? Do you have dogs? All that makes a difference. Is it high traffic, low traffic? Some people will come out there, and a landscape company will come to you, and they'll walk out there and go, here's what you need. You need a retaining wall over there. You need an outdoor area over here. You need a water feature over here. They never once asked her, what do you want? They don't. And why? Because they've got that pencil out to a science. And they know if they put those things in, exactly what they cost them. They don't like it when you tell me what you want. That's like a home builder having to make changes on the home. He has to refigure some of those costs, and they don't like doing that. But they need to find out what your needs may be different than your need, may be different than your needs. So you need to plan that on your own landscape. I worked with a guy the other day, put a beautiful garden in his landscape. He's put it in since he's moved into the house, has a beautiful landscape, went back and put a beautiful garden in. And we went around from the storage building over to the garden, and then we were standing there, and I kept looking, and I'm going, you know, John, you can't get from your garden to your back door without going out to the storage building and all the way around. He goes, you know, Dennis, I never thought about that. He said, I'm usually out in my storage building getting my shovels and all that, and then I walk to my garden. But if I want to walk from my garden with a produce, new garden, to my house, I have to go all the way around. So we put it in a walkway. So think about things when you add them. How does it affect your... Okay, don't worry about the plants, don't worry about the shapes. This is the same drawing that was a minute ago. They just had the easements and all that. And now all it is they put plants in there. Folks, when you do your landscape plan, if you want to do these nice little shapes and all that, I don't care. When we draw landscape plans for customers, we put no shapes and no colors. I hate landscape plans with colors. And we have these computer programs that'll do these for us. And you get these blue trees and purple trees and gold trees and orange trees. And people look at the landscape and go, my God, that's the most beautiful landscape plans I've ever seen. And then you put these trees in and go, hey, where's my blue tree? Where's my orange tree? You know, well, it's colors. When we draw landscape plans, we put numbers. If we're going to put, let's say those are 3 crepe myrtles. We put 1, 1, 1. And there's a key that says 1, red rocket crepe myrtle. And it gives the height. That way, you don't get overwhelmed by those pretty colors and shapes. You look at it and go, he's going to put 3 red rocket crepe myrtles there, and they get 8 foot tall. Okay, I can live with that. So don't get overly worried about shapes and sizes when you all draw up your little landscape plans. Don't worry about that. Be more concerned with what plant is in there, how big will it get, and does it fit the sun and shade and that kind of area. So, and a lot of those plants, that was done for one in Houston, so some of those plants, there are not many pine trees down here. Okay, we're going to run through some of this, just so, if you ever talk to, as a landscape person, you'll talk to some people and then they'll tell you what style their landscape is. So if you ever hear this, you kind of know what the heck they're talking about. This is the formal style. It's usually used a lot in front of, if you go to the Northeast, you'll see this a lot in front of government buildings, or historical homes, that type of thing. Very straight line, geometrical shapes, well trimmed, very square. Down here we call it the 70s landscape, where everybody went out and you took your hedge clippers in, you kept them trimmed perfectly. Nobody even has hedge clippers anymore, hardly now. They use different things, and nobody normally has the time anymore, the desire to keep it trimmed like that. Now, I'm not against it. If you want to form a landscape, get after it. I mean, I just want to show you what one looks like. Most of what we see now on these, though, are more for, like I said, historical buildings, historical homes, that type of thing. We don't see them as much in our everyday landscape. We see a lot more of this. The informal. It's a friend of ours. It's his back patio in Chicago. He called me and said, man, I have 12-foot brick walls. I got to do something. Got a gray apartment building behind us. It's terrible. It's claustrophobic. So we didn't go do it for him because it's in Chicago. But we drew it up for him. He wanted a little water feature. He put slate tile in. He did an arbor to make it look like it had a lot more depth than it does. Put a lot of plants in sizes of different shapes. Yeah, you're going, well, what about in the winter? Well, what about in the winter, folks? It's 20 below zero and there's snow. He's not worried about out there in the winter. What he does is a lot of these plants, this is the 4th year this landscape's been in, all these plants come back every year. During the winter, they get covered with snow and they come back. His water feature freezes over, he turns the pumps off. The kois actually live in there. I don't know how they do, but they do. But anyway, the point is, that took that claustrophobic area, and with a lot of plants of different sizes, shapes, colors, leaves, texture, it made it not look so tight and claustrophobic. So that's the informal. This is the Tuscan style. My family's from Italy. We built a Mediterranean style home, and in the hill country, we have plenty of this and this. So we built a home with Mediterranean style. A lot of our landscape have huge boulders that have made beds where plants can cascade over like this. And we used wrought iron. So it fits the hill country too, because the rock was already there. Free landscaping. So again, that's how you can use, they call it Italian countryside, but basically it's using a lot of stone, old brick, wrought iron, that type of thing. Now, this landscape would not work in Rockport, Texas. It would look stupid. First of all, it's $10 million to bring all the rock in. But the point is, that's what we're talking about, putting the landscape into the existing area. We live in the hill country where our home is. We want our landscape to fit that hill country area. We'll get to a few more here. An English garden. My very first landscape job I ever did was in Karnes County, Texas. It was for a big oil company that moved in, and the lady called me out. She was English. And she said, Dennis, I want to do an English garden. I want an area in the middle where I can sit and drink hot tea and read a book. Well, she had it on the west side. Well, in Karnes County on the west side, you better start with iced tea, because it'll be hot tea by the time you get through. So we moved it to the east side. And English gardens are very defined spaces. But within those spaces, very diverse. Colors, shapes, sizes. So she had a bunch of English plants she handed me. And she said, these are the plants I want to use. And her name was Sarah, and I go, Sarah, and her husband's name is John. I go, these plants won't grow here. I'm not being ugly, they just won't grow here. I mean, she's from London area, and London and Karnes County, Texas are very similar. I don't know if it ever gets foggy in Karnes County, Texas, and cool. But anyway, so we took a lot of plants and changed them. We went into with lantanas and bougainvilleas and things with color that she wanted, but they were plants that would grow in Texas, and she was very happy. I am going to tell you a quick story. I learned the difference between rich people that are successful and me. We were doing a landscape job, and it was a big one. It was a job that put my first son through college. It almost put him through UT. It was a $55,000 to $60,000 profit job. It was over $100,000. They wanted their whole guest house. Not the main house, the guest house done. So I was county agent still in Karnes County. I go out there in the evenings with my two sons, and we worked till like midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning landscaping. When we got there, they wanted these boulders from Colorado. And each one of these boulders weighed about 6,000 pounds. And they were beautiful. They had some granite marble when the sun hit them. They're beautiful. Anyway, they were expensive. But anyway, I hit my skid steer bobcat underneath it, it wouldn't even budge. So we had to get that with their tractor and kind of walk them over. We sat them down, they had the flags, and we sat them down. Well, we got everything done. So we called Sarah and John out one day, and we still had the flags up for some of for the boulders and for their sprinkler system. And she walked out and she said, "Oh my God," I can't remember the text. She said she loved it, but the problem was that one boulder needed to be moved about that much. It was off the flag. And I saw John look at me like, and I'm just thinking, oh my God, we're going to tear this place into shreds to move this boulder. And he goes, "You know, Sarah, why don't you go on in, Dennis and I'll talk about it, we'll figure this out." And so John is a good friend of mine, and now he is. And, but he said, "Dennis, do you know the difference between a really successful businessman and yourself?" And he did not mean it as a cut down. He said it's a learning experience. I said, "No, John." He said, "Dennis, you're sitting there and see, how am I going to get all this damn equipment in here, move this damn boulder this far so that she's happy? You know the difference is, I just moved the flag." He said, "Now just leave it alone. Come back a few days later, we'll go over it." She walked out and said, "It's perfect." So that's how I learned the difference between rich, successful people and me. Don't move the rock, move the flag. Anyway, she was so happy, and she wrote me the check. This is tropical. Tropical, folks, really in this area of the state, we're going to grow tropical more in pots. If you had tropical out in the landscape here, well, during the San Antonio Stock Show, whatever that was, a lot of that not only froze, it killed it. Because it got so, we got the 14 in our house, it probably killed it. So, but tropical uses less foliage of different sizes and shapes to add texture and depth. This, right from here to here, is only 6 feet deep. But it looks a lot deeper than that, doesn't it? The way they use the different textures and all that of the plants, tropical can do that. It can add texture because so many of the tropical plants have so many different size leaves and shapes and colors. But you do whatever you want to, but I recommend in Texas to go more tropical in pots. We tell a quick story. I have a friend in Dallas that has a landscape company. He's up to 10 customers now. And you're going, well, that's not a very big landscape company. Let me tell you what he does. He has customers in Highland Park. If any of y'all know the Dallas area, Highland Park, Jerry Jones lives in Highland Park. You know, rather wealthy people. They want a tropical in-ground landscape. Every year it dies completely. He comes in and charges them $150,000 a year to put it back in. Don't need more than 10 customers, do you? So my point is, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. But those people have the money, that's what they want, they put in every year. They don't want to put just pots. I recommend we do pots that you can move into the greenhouse, or if the plant dies in the pot, you can put a new hibiscus in next year. That's up to you, but we need to be able to control the environment. And then finally, you're going to be a master gardener. Damn it, learn how to say that. That is not xeriscape. Xeriscape is concrete, okay? That's xeriscape. Even concrete's got to be blown off. So that's not even xeriscape. That's 1% scape. Xeriscape. Okay, xeriscape. Take the X out and just put a Z in there, put xeriscape, but not xeroscape. When I hear a master gardener at a little educational event like the San Antonio Stock Show, they had some master gardeners there answering questions. And I heard one of them, well, you need a xeriscape landscape. You need a xeriscape landscape. And my wife, Jenny, said, Dennis, just shut up and leave it alone. And I didn't have the energy or desire to go, but it's xeriscape. Now, I want y'all to hear one thing. Xeriscape incorporates water conservation and uses native and adapted plants. Okay? I love native plants. But we don't have to use all native plants. And at one time, native plants here were adapted plants. Plants have moved in that were adapted and became native over hundreds and hundreds of years. We call them native. They weren't native. They weren't here originally. They moved in here for some reason. Here's what I want you to look at. This is a outside place there in Green. It's a live music venue. I usually go there my wife and I go there to drink and listen to live music. But there is a xeriscape bed. Now I want you to name one native plant to Comal County in that bed, or one native thing in that bed that's from Comal County.
The rock.
The rock, that's it. The rock was native to that county.
Now that looks like it was probably.
No, it actually was. It hasn't turned gray yet. It actually dug it up and still kind of got all the white limestone to it. But none of these plants are native to Comal County, but they're all adapted. They're all water conserving adapted plants. So when you say xeriscape, be careful. It's not just a native, it's native and adapted plants. All right?
All right.
All right.
All right.
Okay, we're going to get to the hardscape. We'll do a few examples, and then we'll take a break, and then we'll do top performers. Whenever we do landscape classes, the first thing people want to know is, Dennis, just shut up and tell me what plants to plant. That's all I really want to know. When I go to Home Depot, God, on Saturdays, all those poor little plants are being bought, and they're just going to all die. Because people don't, they don't know what they're doing with them. If you will plan out your hardscape and get that done correctly, I can grow plants that probably shouldn't grow here and be successful. If all you do is go dig a hole in the ground and stick a plant in there, there's a good chance I can take plants that should grow here and they won't, because you didn't get your hardscape done correctly. So we're going to talk a little about hardscape. This guy on the hardscape, that's things like patios, decks, walkways, all that type thing. Decide on trees, flowers, we'll get to that. Any noise barriers. If you live in Comal County along I-35, I-35, when it actually is moving, is a noisy place. So a lot of people will put up plants that will reduce the noise. Or barriers are like privacy screens. Our back porch has an outdoor fireplace and a hot tub set up. And my wife we don't go jump in there naked or anything, but if you're in a hot tub, you don't want your neighbors over there, and there's a big space for the neighbors, but, leaning over the fence, hey, how y'all doing? Well, we're sitting in a hot tub, The point is, so we did a privacy screen. We did some mountain laurels, but kept them bushy, and then in front of that, on the other side of the wrought iron fence, we did turf caps. And turf caps, so during the growing season, they're fully leaved. The mountain laurels are an evergreen. That was a privacy screen without building a 6-foot board fence. So privacy screens can utilize plants. And it's obviously select plants that will grow in your area. Some people come to me and go, Dennis, did you see the azaleas they had out at the Lowe's the other day? And I go, yes, well, I want those. Well, go ahead. Your pH, if any of y'all done your soil test, not your improved soil, but your native soil, most of y'all's pHs are 7 and above. Azaleas azaleas grow in 5 pH. 5 to 7 is not, it's only 2 points. It's like a earthquake. 5 to 7 is 500 times more basic than 5. So azaleas won't grow in 7 unless you add acidifier to them once a week. So again, grow plants that will grow in your area. It's just a lot easier. Otherwise, remember that maintenance thing we got into. All right, we're going to go over just some basic things. We're going to talk about, I like to use as little concrete as possible. If I'm adding, what I'm getting at is, remember, we have a circulatory system. Our heart's pumping blood out to most parts of our body most of the time, But trees and plants have a vascular system. So in other words, if this tree is sitting here and I pour concrete all on that side of the tree, and this side of the tree remains native dirt or whatever, that side of the tree with that concrete is no longer going to be able to get water and nutrients. Well, don't worry about it. I got this side of the tree is going to make up for it. No. It's a vascular system. That side of the tree takes care of that side of the tree. So I've seen many times where people will get damage to one side of the root system, half the tree will die. The other half will stay alive. So I like to pour as little concrete as possible. And they say, well, there's this thing called permeable concrete. Yeah, it's permeable for concrete. It still doesn't allow water to move through very well. So especially, there was a big pecan tree right here. So its roots are running all underneath here. They wanted to walk away from here to here. Well, if you pour concrete on there, you're really going to do damage to that pecan tree. Those roots are going to be under concrete. Well, you're saying, well, Dennis, you put this over it. Now, they wanted, this is not my favorite color, but you notice the color of the house? Yeah. They wanted the walkway to somewhat match it. They couldn't change the color of the house, so we did that. But anyway, all of this area in here is sand. That's sand in between those joints. So when it rains, water goes right on through there, nutrients go right on through there, right to those roots underneath there. If concrete were there, that's not happening. So that's why I like to use more permeable walkways. All right? This is paved stone. If you're going to do paved stone yourself, that little rubber mallet thing that you tap those stones in, throw that bastard away. That ain't doing it. You got to get it. When you get it done, you got to rent those compactors that compact it down. If you don't know what you're doing, it's probably better to get someone to do it. Watch what they're doing, and if you want to do some more, then you go do it. But those compactors are the only way to get it done like that. We're going to show you one we did that's a driveway. And if you didn't compact it when those cars went over it, it would really be bad. I'm trying to breathe. I feel like I'm having a heart attack. I'm trying to breathe through my nose, which I can't do, and talk out my mouth. Anyway, she gave me some, so I'm good. A lot of people are doing stamped concrete now. And you can do stamped concrete on existing concrete. You can take concrete that's already been done, and they can come in and color it and stamp it. There's a big hospital in New Braunfels, Resolute. The entire front drive is brown. Looks like old stone that they brought in. It's concrete that's been stamped and stamped. It's beautiful. Looks like an old, beautiful driveway. They poured concrete, they stamped it with this old stone look and stained it. So you can do stamp, I don't necessarily care for that one, but what I'm saying is you can stamp concrete in any different colors, shapes, sizes. So a lot of people say, I have my concrete, I'm not taking it out, but maybe I could stamp it and make it look more to fit the landscape design that I've done. And it can be done rather inexpensively. Okay, patios and walkways. These are both in the hill country. These are both in Fredericksburg. They kind of look neat. This one has creeping time between it. So the more you walk on it, the more it creeps out. This one's kind of neat. I'll get smart aleck here in a minute. You walk out here and then you get to gravel. Well, I have a 94-year-old mom. She doesn't use a walker. She probably walks better than I do most of the time. But I don't know if I'd want her walking and then hitting this part. When I wear my high heels to church on Sunday, this is not good. My point is, think about, like, this one actually changed. This was a bed and breakfast in Fredericksburg, and they had so many complaints. A lot of elderly people would have their parents there with a walker. They couldn't get across this part, or they tripped. Think about that walkway you're building. It may be functional to you. Is it functional to other people that would come? And is it functional to you 10 years from now, when you get older? Or you have knee surgery or hip surgery or something, and you have to walk across this part of it. Same with this. The creeping time is really neat, but it does leave those uneven spaces. I do also want to talk about decomposed granite. A lot of people use decomposed granite for walkways. You'll even see them as track areas for walking past. I like decomposed granite, except we have saltillo floors, or if you have hardwood floors. These soft-soled tennis shoes will catch that decomposed granite on your shoes, and when you walk in, it's like taking an ice pick and just going across your floors like that. So, again, it's not a problem with decomposed granite. You need to think about not just what's outside, but some of that outside comes inside. So you might want to think about, will that fit for my inside landscape? It doesn't fit for saltillo tile, so we don't have decomposed granite. But walkways need to be designed for who's going to use them and how practical are they really, not just how pretty are they. Okay, we're going to do something on borders. Borders are beds, areas around flower beds or different things like that. These two jobs were done, and we'll show this one later. All of this rock, this and this, were all on site. They didn't have to buy any of it. I had to dig it all up, but they didn't have to buy any of it. The point was, they were able, we'll show this one over here, a little bit later, we'll show it to you. They wanted to use material that was already on site to save money and to make the landscape fit the existing area it's in. Also, the other thing we need to remember is, you don't have to get overboard on it, but borders and that should not just be a straight line. Nature doesn't grow in a straight line. And everybody says, well, Dennis, I see those trees growing along the fence line, they're all straight. Because they're growing on a fence line, folks. You take the fence line down and won't, but anyway, nature grows dispersed and random. So I want my borders to be curves. The only straight lines you're usually going to get is your property line. And we even have a little bit of a curve there, but we'll show that. But anyway, borders can be done using existing materials. That's one thing. Okay, this is an example. These big paved stone, they're concrete, they look like rock on the outside. Now, this is a fantastic material, and this is the worst bed design that has ever been done to mankind. Now look at this bed. First of all, you got a tree stuck in it. It's that tall off the ground. Do you really think those roots are going all the way down through it and then out into the existing soil? No. To this tree, that is a big pot plant. And those roots are going to stay right in there. And I'll bet you 10 years from now, I can take that tree off. Oh, this afternoon, when the wind gusts to 50, that tree's going over. Because those roots are staying right in. Why do they tell us when you're planting a plant and you take the soil out, put the same soil back in? Everybody goes, oh, no, I want to put compost and potting soil and all this in there. No. Because what's going to happen? Those roots are in that nice loose soil that you put in there, and guess where they're staying? In that nice loose soil. Roots are very lazy. We talked about that. And they'll never get out. Everybody goes, well, this tree doesn't like this heavier clay soil. Then don't plant that tree. I mean, I'm not being ugly, but changing the soil type in that little circle is not the answer. So that's what they did there. Now, not only was that bad enough, let's stick some dwarf yopon hollies in there. Because you know the bed's not very big, and these things are going to get about 4 by 4, not basketball size. But you know what? Hell, we didn't put enough crap in there. So let's put some variety around the edge, because let's just really fill it up. Now again, this bed was just planted. So when you walk off, it kind of looks okay, you know? A year from now, it is going to be a disaster. I drove by this. This is an old picture, but I drove by this about 5 years after the tree was gone. Now, the only reason that tree's gone is it had to fall over. They didn't just take the tree out. These, about 3 of them are left. They're about 4 by 4. And the variety, there's 1 or 2 pieces here in between the plants that aren't growing. It's ugly. So, great material, ugly bed. This is the other thing we see with shrubs that aren't meant for our area. Okay, when these shrubs were first planted, they were below the window line. Now they're almost midway. Guess what? I drove by this about a month and a half ago. They're literally to that one right there.
Disgusting.
Yeah, disgusting. But you need to remember, if it says it's going to get 8 foot tall, sooner or later it is, and you can't keep trimming them down. Pretty soon you're going to end up with limbs that big and no leaves. So read the damn tag. All right. Other borders, metal edging. Metal edging works really good. If you're going to buy metal edging, do not go to Home Depot or Lowe's. Go to a landscape supply company and buy the heavier gauge. Why? It lasts longer. Number 2, when you make these curves, with the real cheap stuff, sometimes the tops will bend back and forth and they don't make a nicer. The heavier gauge, when it bends, it stays straight all the way through. So just pay a little extra and get the heavier gauge from the landscape. Most places that sell like landscape materials, dirt, rocks, and that will carry landscape edging. The other thing that they're using now too, most of these places will now carry that. They're now using the edging that is made of the same material as the decking material we're buying now. You see the decking material has the wood grain look. It's actually made plastic. Yeah, they've got it. It looks like, if anybody knows what a 1 by 4 piece of lumber looks like, that's what it looks like, about that same width and thickness. It's a plastic product with wood grain. It can be bent with no problem. It's got stakes that hold the ground. It does not rust. You can get it in various colors. So you get a gray home, you can get gray. You paint your house brown. But anyway, but you can get different colors. I do like it. It's more expensive. I do like that it doesn't rust. It's a little more stable. I have a customer that always runs over with a riding lawnmower. She doesn't mess this up. The metal one, she was always banging it up and then getting it caught up in the blade. Well, you can imagine what that sounded like. But they do make the metal edging and they do make this new material, and both the landscape companies can get you both.
What is it called?
It depends on, I hate to call it that. If you go to a landscape company, say, I want the heavy decking, edging, and they'll know what you're talking about, and then they'll show you different colors, and you can pick whatever color you want to. It looks just like the decking we put on the decks that have the wood grain in it, but they're plastic instead of wood. So it lasts forever. Probably lasts longer than you're going to leave it there, but. Focal points. I think when I give this talk in Wimberley, I have to take this slide out. They don't allow outdoor lighting at night. They said it screws the birds up. Okay. Too many people only think of two problems. What does my landscape look like from the front drive looking at my house? They forget, what about when I'm in the house looking out? Why don't you think about that? You're in your house a lot looking out. Think about that. And secondly, landscapes turn off at night. No, they don't. This is done in Houston. Now, I have to be honest, if you're going to do a job of this magnitude, you need to have someone come in and do it for you. That's not a go buy them at Home Depot and put them out. You can buy some better lights, or you can even have people design it for you. A lot of people will have them design it, sell you the material, and then if husband thinks he's a DIY, he can put it in. And then you can call him and come do it. But anyway, but like for instance, these are beautiful steps. But at night with no lighting, that's dangerous. Number one, there's no pattern to it. So it's not like you can go 1, 2, 3, okay, 1, look at the pattern. There is no pattern until you get up here. So the soft lighting there allows you to see the sidewalk at night. The soft lighting here accentuates the house. The reason I say get a company to do it, I see people do this on their house and they have spotlights on their house. And they have to shut their blinds because it's so damn bright, they can't sleep at night until they go off. So lighting can add safety and a beautiful ambiance and softness to make your house pop at night. We have some decorative grasses like, and we'll show you a couple of them, but we have ruby crystals grass and Gulf Coast muley grass, and when they bloom, they have big, beautiful pink like seed heads. So we have lights that come on at night, real soft in there, so at night you see those big, beautiful pink seed heads on the grass at night. They actually show up better at night than they do during the day. So outdoor lighting can be a good focal point if it's something you're interested in. Remember though, there is a cost, and there is still a maintenance. Water features. Water features are wonderful. More water features are now being taken out of the state of Texas and put in because of maintenance and water. Also remember, let's say you have a 2-year-old grandchild. That is a swimming pool, and they can drown in it. So you need to think about, it's a beautiful water feature, and we don't have any swimming pool. We don't have to watch, my youngest granddaughter's named Lila. We don't have to watch Lila. She's good. You never remember that water feature. They get in there, and there's koi in there, or goldfish, and they're looking, they fall in, bump their head, and they drown. Yeah. It's as deep as a bathtub, so you need to think about that. We have 2 water features on our property. All of them are gravel. The water is in catchment under the ground. The water comes out, goes through a gravel base, and goes into a catchment. There is no standing water that a person can fall into or whatever. If you're going to do a water feature of any type, go to Hill Country's Water Garden and Nursery in Leander, Texas. Hill Country's Water Garden and Nursery in Leander, Texas. They are a regular nursery, but they probably have 200 water features from the fanciest you've ever seen to the simplest. If you want to do it yourself, they'll show you, they'll plumb it for you, they'll show you what pump you need, they'll show you how to do it. Or if you want them to do it, they'll come do it for you. I've done all of mine myself. They're not real complicated. Now, something like this, obviously, that's a little more complicated. But there's nothing worse than getting it all figured. You bought the wrong pump. Instead of the water coming out like this, it's shooting up like a geyser. Or, like, we've had these pumps in ours for 15 years. Same pumps. The little diaphragm goes out. They charge you $1.50 to put a new one in, put the pump right back in. And I've lost 1 diaphragm on each one. So the pumps, oh God, I hope they're still running right now. But anyway, the pumps do real well, but they plan everything out for you. My mother-in-law wanted one with the pots where the water comes and trickles over. And so she picked the color she wanted, they figured the pump, what catchment she needed, and plumbed it for her. We took it home, within 2 or 3 hours it was hooked up, ready to go. We have some in the front of ours, where our dining room looks out a window, we have 3 red ones of different sizes with bird bath tops. And so the finches are always up in there bathing in it and all that. So again, think about what your landscape looks from the inside looking out. I always show this one. All I did was the pot plants and some of the trees around there. This was done by a friend of mine. He wanted fog to come out at night. That's actually dry ice that causes fog to come out. This part cost $180,000 right there. That's just stupid. But anyway, guy has plenty of money, and so that's what he wanted. Okay, and the final thing, I have a friend. She lives in Port Aransas. She was raised in Aransas Pass, Texas. Anybody knows the Aransas Wildlife Refuge? The no, not Sand Hill, the whooping crane. The whooping crane. Whooping cranes overwinter there. I mean, they've actually come back. They were almost completely gone. They come to the Aransas Wildlife Refuge every year. She was actually raised before part of the Aransas Wildlife Refuge. She's 96 now. She lives in a controlled home area, and she wanted, this is her little landscape, that's it. She wanted a couple of bronze whooping cranes in her landscape. Folks, that was $8,000.
Yeah.
Now, that's dumb. She's 96, she's got more money to know what to do with.
Is she happy?
More power to her. More power to her. And really, they do fit in very well. They do. And then we moved to Austin, Texas, off of Zilker Park. Look at this beautiful old bridge. Look at these old trees. There's a creek running through there, and then look at this stupid urn. That looks like to me, and anybody that dies within a 10-mile radius, they take their ashes and lift that lid, and put it in there and shut the lid back down. You don't even notice that beautiful old rock bridge in the creek. All you see is that stupid white urn. I did a program in Austin for Travis County, Master Gardeners. I did not realize the family that donated all of that, not this part, all of this, was there. They're very wealthy people in Austin. They donated Zilker Park. So you can imagine what they were worth. She said, I am so glad you said this. I have never liked this, but I didn't want to say anything. I go, man, you're worth billions. You donated this. If you don't like it, say something. So she goes, would you go with me? She has a driver pick me up. Oh, he's just the sweetest thing. But she goes, this young man wants to tell y'all something. I said, we don't like that urn. We want it out of there. Yes, ma'am. We will have it out of there by this afternoon. And now they've landscaped all around there, and that stupid urn's gone. Remember, your yard art might be your neighbors going, oh my God. We have a person who lives way down the subdivision, has a 6-foot metal pink pig in his front yard. Well, that's to the HOA finally made him move it. But anyway, so remember, you know, I see people go to Hill Country all the time for market days, like, oh my God, I gotta have that in my front yard. And just think about, it might not be, that's cool. That's beautiful. That sucks. I love this lady. She's a multi-billionaire and was afraid to tell him to move the urn off all the property that she had done. I mean, the property's worth. Well, Zilker Park's like the Central Park of Austin compared to New York.
It just doesn't.
It doesn't fit.
Right.
It's not that it's ugly. Well, it is ugly. But it doesn't fit. It does not. And you don't notice this. That beautiful old rock stone bridge, because you see, I call it the community urn.
Who put that there?
The people, when she donated the land, the bridge was there, and so she just said, y'all can landscape it and do what you want to with it, and this guy thought that would be really neat. And it's so funny, I've always been wanting to say anything, but I hate to say anything. Hey, lady, you donated, you could buy these people. You tell them anything you want to. Okay, we're gonna do the landscape plan, take a quick break, and then we'll show you all the plans. This is a friend of mine. He was my boss, Lynn Wilson. Lynn Wilson works at Stock Show in San Antonio. He was our district director. This was his home. He called me out one day, my wife and I said, I want you to landscape my home. I need it cheap, And remember, your performance review is coming up in a few months. No pressure. This was his picnic table that his grandkids used. That's what he used. You sat on that and it took forever to get up. 2 damn chairs that don't even match. I mean, come on. So, we came in and he had some stipulations, and we're going to show you one that I wouldn't have done, but that he wanted. And that's where you ask the customers what do they want. First of all, he lives on Canyon Lake. Did you see the lake?
No.
If you were just kind of glancing at that, did you see a lake? Well, now there's not much lake. Anyway, there's his view of Canyon Lake. He has a double deck over here, but look, number one, how did he become my boss? I told him, his chairs don't even look at the lake. They look away from the lake. Let's buy lakefront property and turn our chairs away from it. But you can't see it, so what he said, I don't want any fence lines, but I do want my property line marked. Okay, we took a lot of large rocks on the place. We did this right here because right past that is an 80-foot drop, straight down. And so you kind of want to know that's there. I bought the chairs out of my own pocket and turned them the right way. So, but the point is, we didn't remove any trees. We thinned the trees out to where you could see. It still looks natural. We kind of, and our job was, I wanted to frame Canyon Lake. So,
It looks like you graded it down, did you?
no,
Just by removing the,
which part are we talking about?
on the right, it looks like the landscape's going down a little bit.
No grade change. No grade change at all.
Wow,
No grade change.
that's amazing.
Yeah. Okay, now he did want some Palisades noisy. He wanted a little bit of a green space, and we'll show another picture in a minute. But anyway, that was the first thing. Open up the lake view, and we started this rock right here. Now, remember that piece of metal edging I showed earlier? That came here and comes all over. That's where the picnic table was, right there. So he wanted something that could come from his front drive to his house, and then from his house, if he wanted to walk around here, to this. This is called a Frenchburg Walkway. A Frenchburg Walkway, like I said, the hill country people didn't have any money back in the day, but they had bark off of cedar trees and flagstone rocks. So they made walkways. They took the bark and they peel it with machetes and chop it up. That was old-time mulch. And then they lay these flagstone rocks in there. And now, it's, oh my God, I can charge anything I want to build that. And back then they were free, because you had free rock and free mulch. Anyway, the point is, that's the first step. Okay, second step. Y'all recognize that picture? He wanted, there was his property line. He wanted a property line, but he didn't want it to look so harsh with the fence. So we took that stacked rock and we made what's called a hill country stacked rock fence. In the old days, they couldn't build fence in the hill country because you couldn't get through the rock. So instead of doing that, they stacked the rock for the sheep and goats and cattle so they couldn't go through it. So we just took all the rock we found and I laid. My ancestors from Italy were rock masons, and I suck at it. They would be ashamed of this, but hey, you lose things through the generations. Anyway, we stacked all this rock, and then we built the beds coming off of it. All of this rock was on site. We dug it all out on site. We put plants in that the deer literally lay back in there waiting for you to finish so they can come eat the buffet. So we have to plant plants that were deer resistant. And then, got a few more pictures of it. And wait till I tell you what I charge this guy for this. Okay. No, it's the other way around. Okay, when I saw this, the first thing I thought, wouldn't that be beautiful to have a rock retaining wall made out with a little bit of mortar, that good hill country rock, and then that would blend into that flat grass that you saw. He said, I don't want that, Dennis. Okay. He lives off Skyline Road. Skyline Road, when you drive to his house, there is no shoulders. So it's a 2-lane road. You cannot pull off the side and park. When you get to his house, he had his driveway. You could pull 2 vehicles on there if people came to visit, 2. He liked to entertain. So you couldn't pull out on the street. You either parked in the driveway or you parked on the clubhouse down below. Remember that 80-foot walk? You'd have to walk up an 80-foot hill to get to their house. So he said, Dennis, I need parking. So what I would have put a retaining wall in there and I thought that would have been beautiful. He needed parking for when people came over to visit. So he poured the concrete, then we tied the landscape into that concrete. So again, sometimes it's not what you want as the landscaper, or what are your needs, or what is your customer's needs. I wouldn't have done that, but that's what he needed for people that came to visit. So, that's very important. And then there's that walkway that we showed earlier. See how it goes to his front porch and then goes around to the side. And this is just a little bit of a final picture of that one bed. There was the existing, and there's what it looks like now with that rock wall. Okay, what do y'all think that cost him? Make a guess.
Your evaluation.
$800 is all I charged that man for that job. $800.
What would you charge?
That's $10,000.
I want 10?
10,000.
You got a good review though.
Yeah, good review was Can't walk worth that crap. Got a good review. Yeah. This is another thing I want to show y'all that has nothing to do with the plants. I had a friend of mine owns a landscape company in Houston. This person bought this house, wants it completely redone, landscape and all. He said, Dennis, I'll do the landscaping because he's from Houston, he knows plants, but I want you to do the rock work because again, your ancestors were rock masons. They were my ancestors. You go to Del Rio, Texas, look for Tiny. He's on all the corners of every damn rock home or rock wall built in Del Rio. That was my grandfather's. Came over from Italy, didn't have any work for him in New York, they sent him to Del Rio. Wow, what a culture shock. And he was called a wop, and everybody goes, well, that's a rock. Without papers. He was one without papers in Ellis Island, and they sent him in. Okay, number one, that house was actually painted that color. They washed it off, and there was a pretty rock. That was the first thing. Who would paint that to look like that? Okay. They wanted to get rid of this narrow here. This retaining wall was here. If you notice, this one's not here. So he said, Dennis, I want you to do a driveway and the walkway, all the rock work. We'll do the landscape work. Okay, no problem. I got there and I watched it. They were they'd already done all this. They painted it. They had the new roof on it. And I looked at the roof and I said, look, it's kind of got a bunch of this gray and kind of a bluish, not blue, but kind of that bluish gray. Why don't we do the driveway to match? So we did a cobblestone paved stone that's kind of a grayish blue with gray. And if you look real close, this does kind of match. So you can tie hardscapes together. Now this is what I'm talking about. If you're going to do a driveway and you don't use a compactor and you try to drive vehicles on there, it'll be a mess. Okay, these are lights that shine down at night. So if you pull up and go to open your door, you know where the rock ledge is. And right there, and there are small lights that light that up at night. So when you do pull up, you know where the steps are. So we redid all of this, made this wider, where you can get up this driveway, and tried to tie this into this. So we don't have completely things that don't look alike. And this would have been ugly just putting concrete down with that home. Okay. I think this is the last one. We'll take a break. Okay. Friend of mine, my oldest son went with a guy, went to school with a guy in Carn City, and they moved to Iowa with a job, and this was his home. What a beautiful old style home in Iowa. And he wanted to paint it, and he said, I want to paint it, but they have those beautiful porches you sit on, you wave at your neighbors and all that good stuff. He said, my God, the shrubs have grown up so tall, I can't hardly see out of them. You know, Dennis, could you do the landscape for me? And I said, then I'll design the landscape for you. I'm not driving to Iowa to put your landscape in. Well, I found a guy that I know, went to school with, and he was doing a doctorate up at Iowa State. So he said, yeah, I've got some guys a company that can do that. The first thing we wanted to do, once we painted, I wanted to get the landscape off this house. We plant too many landscapes on top of our house. Why do we have to plant everything right up against our house? Why don't we get stuff off our house? Get out in the landscape. So the first thing I did is, this was a plant, this is the Rose of Sharon, belonged to his mom who passed away from cancer. He said, I want to keep that. I want to put that in. I said, you got it. But the rest of it, you notice, they redid the walkway. They took the concrete, they took this, widened it, and stamped it to make it look like a cobblestone walkway. That's still concrete, but it's stamped. All of these shrubs right here will never get taller than this. We moved most of the landscape on the other side of the sidewalk, on the grass side. So this is all going to be low landscape, but it got it off the house so you can see that beautiful architecture of this old style home rather than covering up the architecture of this old style home. So what I'm saying is there's no right or wrong, but when you're looking at it, think sometimes outside the box. What are you trying to highlight? Well, he wants to highlight this beautiful home. So why would he put a bunch of plants there that take away from this beautiful home? Now this was, spring was just starting, so these plants will green up some. But think about like Lynn Wilson's home at Canyon Lake. I want to frame the lake. The home that we did in Houston, I wanted to tie the driveway and the rock work to the house. I wanted to bring the landscape off of this house and highlight the architecture of the home. That's what I challenge y'all to do when y'all do these plans for your landscape designs. Is accentuate your landscape, don't clutter it. Okay, let's take a break and then we'll do some plants right afterwards, okay? Oh, no need to clap, trust me.
Oh, yeah, there's plenty of need to clap.
My friends are now multimillionaires, but the landscape of it has changed dramatically from that small town. I'm happy for my friends being multimillionaires, though, don't get me wrong. Yeah, I got a friend, I was driving out with him the other day to look at his cattle. His name is Keith Essie, and they're big people out in Carnes and Live Oak and Atascosa County. They own 8,000 acres. And he goes like this. He goes like, would you mind getting the gate? I go, God damn, Keith, you got all this kind of money. Could you have a gate that opens? So I got, anyway, he said, and he started, well, I'll just get the gate. I said, good, I'll drive through. He had a bunch of checks. He has, they're all over the place from the people. He had checks all up on his dash. He probably had 20 checks, and the smallest was $1.8 million. Whoa. He said, I go, Keith, could you just endorse one of those over? Because I have got to get those to the bank. I've just been throwing them up there. I'll get to them one. Now, you know how much money you have. You probably have 20 checks on your dash. Over $1 million each. Yeah. God. Life is so tough on him. All right, we're going to go over some plants real quick. These are a little different plants, not different, but these are plants that are working in your landscape that aren't those old standard plants that a lot of landscape companies use. We're going to tell you real quick, sun or shade, are they drought tolerant, are they deer resistant, are they butterfly attractors, hummingbird attractors, and how do you manage them? How do you work? And how big do they get? All right, the first one, Prada Barbados. Prada Barbados, if you buy it in the nursery, you won't look like this, trust me. Looks like a scraggly little thing. Comes in a 1 gallon pot sometimes about that tall. This plant is going to get 6 by 6 roughly. 6 foot by 6 foot in 1 year. It's going to put out these beautiful orange and yellow flowers. In the middle of August when nothing else is blooming, this will be in full bloom. It needs full sun. You stick it in the shade, you'll have a 20-foot plant with no flowers on it. Full sun, 6 by 6, it blooms in the hot, dry summer when nothing else will bloom. It is a huge butterfly attractor. It is extremely drought tolerant. Now, let me clarify this so people don't screw this up. Once you get it established, you never have to water this plant again. It's just that drought tolerant. Now, I go, well, didn't she say you never had water? I put it in there. Every water did it die. You have to get it established. Use it that first year. You have to get it established. Don't overwater them when you're getting them. Most people overwater new plants, not underwater them. But once you get that first year out of the way or so, I've never watered mine ever again. They do wonderful. The deer won't really mess with it. Hang on, let me get through it and we'll answer the question on each plant. Because otherwise I'll forget something. The deer will not really eat it, but The bark has kind of a rough bark, and the bucks in velvet sometimes, if you have deer, will rub on it. Doesn't hurt it or anything. It's extremely drought tolerant, and the other thing, how do you manage it? Okay, first of all, when your landscape freezes in January, do not go out and start cutting everything back. Worst thing you can do. Worst thing you can do. Number one, a lot of that landscape is still being used by wildlife, birds and stuff like that. Number two, it's a greenhouse effect. Have you ever noticed an oak tree? It's always greener in an oak tree after a freeze than it is outside the oak tree. It's the same underneath that plant when it loses all its leaves. It's warmer down that root zone when all of this dead material is still there. I am just now starting to cut my landscape back. I just started Sunday. Just started. And I won't finish till probably the middle of the month or so. Kind of look at the forecast. It looks like most of our freezes, I hope we're over. But anyway, I'm just now starting. So don't try to cut this dead stuff back too soon. But how do you manage this plant? Cut it to the ground every year. And that is 1 year. It will get 6, once it's established, it will get 6 by 6 every year after it's been cut to the ground beginning this spring. All right, now what was your question, man?
My question is, can we grow that in a pot, in a big pot?
Yes, but it needs to be a big pot, because that's a fairly, I'm going to give you a couple more that probably would grow better in a pot. The next one is one of them. But that's part of our base.
Can I ask a quick?
Yes.
Growing from a seed pod?
Yes, but it takes a long time. Also, my biggest problem is sometimes you'll pick a real pretty one like that, and the seed doesn't necessarily always come out quite like the mama plant. So it's not a hybrid, but sometimes they don't come out. But yes, you can grow from seed. If you will harvest the seed pods when they're dry, you can plant them and they will come up. Yes, no problem.
And they'll take a freeze, make a freeze and then come back.
They freeze, they lose all right now. Mine, I haven't cut mine back yet. I work on. There's just sticks, just good, ugly sticks. But I'm looking right now. I'm looking, and there's some little red leaves. They come out with little red leaves to start with. They're just starting to come out from the root system. Also, if you leave all these long dead pieces, nothing's coming back on that part anyway. So why leave it? Cut it back. You don't have to get them. If you want 4 inches, 6 inches, or do the ground. I don't know. I just take a pinch clip and go, and that's it. So it's not real scientific. But I like to get them fairly short, so I don't have a lot of stubble there. The next one would be better if you wanted something in a pot. Esperanza. Comes in a yellow and orange. The yellow actually blooms a little better. I don't care which color you pick, the yellow just blooms better. Full sun. Once it's established, very drought tolerant. Not as drought tolerant as the Pride of Barbados, but it's still very drought tolerant. It blooms spring, summer, and fall. A big butterfly attractor. It also attracts bumblebees in the fall. Everybody, I don't want bumblebees. The hell you don't. They're bees, and they pollinate, and they don't bother you when they're foraging. So bumblebees love this one in the fall. Deer, okay. I only do a deer for, I'm just so used to it because we have so many deer. When it first comes out in the spring, the does will eat it because a lot of times they're having their babies May, early June. So they may eat on this plant when it first comes out because their nutrition requirement went way up. But then within 30 days, they don't even touch it. And it'll grow up and do its thing. Has these beautiful yellow flowers. They can come from seed also. This plant needs to be cut back just like Pride of Barbados. My backyard is much more protected, so I just start on my backyard. I just cut this one back Sunday to about like that. That's Esperanza. What's Esperanza mean in English? There you go. You hope it grows, right? Turf cap. Folks, y'all need these. This is the only plant that will grow in full shade to full sun and everything in between. It is a native. If you come up to the hill country, it grows everywhere on the hill country native. Just native. There's 2 types. The native variety, if you go to a native nursery, they're going to be about 3 by 3. They're going to be smaller. The ones that come from the nursery, and I have both of them, are from a regular nursery, they're going to have bigger leaves than this, and they're going to get to be about 5 by 5. So you can use them different ways. That Turk's cap that we planted in front of the mountain laurels as a shielding, we use the bigger one, the 5 by 5 with the bigger leaves. But you can also use these smaller ones But these will be bought from, you have to go to a native nursery to get the small ones. Now, don't look at the ones at Home Depot and go, yeah, the leaves kind of look smaller. No, they're not. They're the bigger one. You'd have to go to like John Gronville's nursery and BK's or one of those places that have sell native plants. They get this wonderful red flower. It is a hummingbird. It's not a hummingbird attractor. That's crack cocaine for hummingbirds right there. Let me tell you. I have seen 30 hummingbirds on our Turk's cat fighting each other because they're the meanest suckers in the world. But anyway, hummingbirds love this. I do not put hummingbird feeders out because I forget to change them. This stuff sours. And so we have these, and I mean, you will literally have 30 hummingbirds on this plant sometimes at one time. It's a wonderful attractor. Very drought tolerant. They're native to the hill country. So they will wilt sometimes, like cotton plants will in the summer, but that evening they'll pop right back up. So once they're established, very drought tolerant, deer don't bother them. Like I said, hummingbird attractor. I cut these back every year. Cut them back every year.
And
How
how
do you do that?
The native ones are 3 by 3. The ones in the regular nurseries are about 5 by 5. That's 5 foot by 5 foot, not 5 inches. But again,
not pots.
yes, you can grow the native ones in pots because 3 by 3 will fit in a big pot. The 5 by 5, that's too big.
Okay.
But there is a difference. If you ever drive up into the hill country, you'll see a bunch of natives there. They're just small ones in there. They're called understory plants. But a wonderful plant because you have the sun to grow. Whether you're full shade, part shade, or full sun, they will grow there. Not the only plant I know that will do that.
And you can eat the flower.
Yeah. the flower.
Okay, I'm sure you can.
Transplant, take cuttings out.
Yes, you can take cuttings off of them, and I did not know you could eat the flower.
Yeah.
Great.
Transplant.
If I can fight those hummingbirds off to get to it, I did not know that. Well, that's good. See, I learned something today. See, I learned something today more than you did. Blue plumbago. Why is blue plumbago so popular? There's almost no blue in perennial in landscapes. There's blue flowers. There's not many blue perennials. A lot of your mealy blue sage is more purple. So this is a true blue. If you want the white, get the Mexican plumbago. It comes in white. So a lot of people will do the blue and the white mixed together. I like to go find them actually blooming at the nursery because some of them have a lighter blue color and some of them have a little darker blue color. So I like to do one light, one dark, and one white in groups of 3s. And so you have a little bit of a difference. This, how hard is it to maintain them? This is at the outlet mall in San Marcos, right there. You put them in groups. This is not a single plant. This is usually a grouping. And they will fill in the area. I planted 3 from you to you, and they filled that area in. They're not invasive, but they will throw up little runners. If you want to pull them around, I mean, they don't just start growing like Bermuda grass, just taking it, but they will fill the area, which I want. I want them to fill that in. Deer will eat them, folks. So if you have a heavy deer population, if you have a light deer, don't worry. Heavy deer, they'll graze on them pretty good. These plants are going to get roughly on a normal year about 3 by 3, on a really wet year about 4 by 4. 3 by 3, 4 by 4. Big time butterfly attractors. Butterflies love them, and they're very drought tolerant. They can grow in full sun, as you can see at the outlet mall. We have ours growing in dappled sun. We have an oak tree that lets sun through, but not full sun, and they grow just fine and bloom just fine. Full shade, they'll grow, they won't bloom in full shade. Okay? How do you manage these? We'll change this in a minute. Cut them to the ground every year. Even if we didn't get a freeze, cut them to the ground. Because you'll get some dead pieces in them, and then they just look nasty.
In the spring, you cut everything?
I'm just now doing it right now. Unless I tell you something different, right as we're getting ready for, as we know spring is here, you can start getting after it. I don't even care. When I cut mine in the backyard, I was already getting new growth starting up. And so, not a problem. We just don't want to do it. You know, some people went out in early February because it warmed up so heavy in January and February, and then we had that 13-degree weather. Well, guess what? It killed all the new growth. Now that plant has to start all over with its reserves, and that's hard on these plants. So don't get in a hurry. Firebush. If you have a hot, sunny area, in your landscape, you need one of these. It loves sun and it loves heat. It is going to get 6 by 6. It gets green leaves in the fall before it loses its leaves after the winter, after the cool fronts start coming through, they turn to burgundy color, or maroon, whatever color you want to call them, and then they'll fall off. They get these little color-looking things. Hummingbirds like them and butterflies like them, and bumblebees love them in the fall. So they're a really good diverse plant. The other thing I like about them is when they freeze in the winter, lose their leaves. I'm not a bird expert, but there's this little gray-looking bird that they live in there. They overwinter, and that's another reason you don't want to cut them back. You just took habitat away from those birds that stay in there. A deer will not touch them. Once you establish them, I never water them. They're very drought tolerant, and they want the hotter, drier spot of your landscape as its favorite spot. 6 by 6, cut them back every year. My wife always says, Jenny says, I said, Jenny, I think I killed them this year. I think I did. I cut them back. They're not coming back. They're not. She said that every year for 15 years you said that, and finally they're the last ones to pop out, but then they grow quick. And they get 6 by 6. This is a picture of one that was cut to the ground that spring. 6 by 6, once they're established. Now the first year they're not going to be 6 by 6, okay, folks? Listen, 6 by 6. But they'll come back every year. But a wonderful landscape plant. Mexican honeysuckle. This is not the vine honeysuckle. This isn't coral honeysuckle or Hall's honeysuckle. This is a shrub. To tell you how tough this plant is, when I was in Carnes County, there's a little town called Rogie. When you drive to the end of the world, take a left, go 30 more miles, and you're in Rogie, Texas. Okay, that's just, it's hot and it's dry. They had an old abandoned home there that had Mexican honeysuckle in their front yard. Every year it would die, it would come back, it would die on its own. An abandoned house. That's how tough it is. Mexican honeysuckle, look at the flower and tell me if hummingbirds wouldn't like that sucker. They love it. It's going to get 3 by 3. I usually plant them in groupings of 3 to 5. I am not in interior design. I learned from them. Landscape and interior design people do everything in odd numbers, not even. I don't know why, but I was told that. By God, I stayed with it. And all the interior designers, when they see our landscape, oh, you did it right, 3s and 5s? No, I didn't. Okay. Anyway, they like full sun, but they can take some shade. Those are oak trees there. I have some in my backyard with some part shade, and they bloom just fine. I have some in my front yard with full west sun, and they bloom just fine. They can't handle full shade. They'll grow, but they just won't bloom. Hummingbirds love them. Deer don't really bother them much. Extremely drought tolerant. I never water them, and I cut them back to the ground every year.
Yeah, if you don't cut them back, they'll freeze back during the winter, but they come back.
They'll come back from the base, and then you have all those old dead branches up in there. So.
And you know, as far as deer resistant, like what Dennis is saying, I've got some that I've grown, started to really love these plants, and the deer have not bothered mine at all, even though they shear down my wife's rose bushes and the daylilies on an ongoing basis, and they're planted right next to my daylilies. They won't even touch those things.
Yeah, roses, I'm not going to show you roses because roses, we'll take out roses.
Never mind, keep on going.
Salvia. Okay, Mexican bush sage. But don't buy Mexican bush sage without reading, does it say that on the tag? Go to a nursery. Everything's Mexican bush sage. Everything. If it's got a purple kind of flower, labeled Mexican bush sage. If you want to know, did you get Mexican bush sage, number 1, the purple has a little white piece on the flower. But number 2, where it says Mexican bush sage, look for Salvia leucantha. It's the only reason I put the scientific name up there. That tells you it's truly Mexican bush sage. Here's its natural form. Full sun, completely deer resistant. Butterflies love this plant. Once it's established, it doesn't need water. It's a salvia, so it's very drought tolerant. The plant is going to form this shape naturally, kind of a round shape, dome. The plant is about 3 foot tall, but when it blooms, add another foot to it. The bloom spikes are about 1 foot long. So 3 foot for the plant, plus another foot for the dip. Now, once they go through a blooming cycle, I'm really scientific. I go out there with a weed eater. I just do this over the top of them, knock all the blooms off, and within 2 to 3 weeks, they're blooming full again. So you can just, and you don't have to get out there and be real, I just take a weed eater. Anyway,
Do you have a problem with snakes with those?
I am not, but I always look before I go in there. I mean, that isn't, any of these plants, you need to be careful. I mean, gardens are the worst. Gardens with those big leaves, those rattlesnakes like laying those cool leaves in the summer. But I was raised in the country, so I know before I go in there, I'm taking a stick and look around just in case before I stick my hand down in there and get bit by something. And, snakes aren't looking at a virus, but they will. This plant I cut back every year. It will freeze and have all that dead material, so I just cut it back every year, and it comes back very easily. And the timing is the same on all these so far. It needs full sun, though. If you put this in the shade, it just will not bloom. But the main reason is look for the leucantha. That tells you it truly is Mexican bush sage. Lantanas, just real quick. Lantanas are wonderful. Bush lantanas are native. You can get, in Lockhart, Texas, they grow on the pasture. Karnes County, Texas, they grow on the pastures. I'm showing you 3 quick types of lantanas. You need to pay attention to the tag when you buy them. This is a bush lantana. It makes a shrub. If it says bush lantana, it'll give you height like 3-4 foot tall. It makes a shrub. So it's grown as a shrub. So you don't cut those back every year to the ground because they're small shrubs. This is a semi-dwarf lantana. New gold. This is new gold. This is one you see, everybody sees the yellow. I like another one called Dallas Red. Dallas Red has a beautiful blood red with orange. It mixes well. We mix the two together. We'll plant like new gold and Dallas Red, like that. Semi-trailing means they get up about this tall, and then they trail out. All right? Then there's the third type, the trailing lantana. There's only 2 colors, lavender and white. Only 2 colors they make. The leaves are little bitty. They look like mint leaves because this is a member of the mint family. But those leaves, if you notice, you really see the leaves here. Look, you don't even hardly notice the leaves. They get about this tall, and then they trail. We grow these in those big rock beds that we put around our house with those big boulders, and they cascade over. So you need to know the difference is what I'm saying. By reading the tag, it'll tell you, is it a bush lantana, a semi-trailing lantana, or a trailing lantana? So there is a difference. Deer, I hate deer sometimes. They don't eat the plant much, but they will harvest the flower somewhat. But if you have them in groups, they'll need some, so you'll always have some color. They need full sun. They need full sun. They are extremely drought tolerant. Once they get going, you can't kill them with drought. And butterflies love them. They're a big butterfly attractor. Oh, not the bush, not the shrub. Leave it alone. That you can do a little trimming if you need to. These 2, you cut them back every year because they're going to die in the ground. Cut them back, they come back from their roots every year. Keep it moving. Ornamental grasses, all I'm going to say about ornamental grasses, we need a lot more of them in our landscape. This is ruby crystals grass. We grow this one out, it gets about this tall. It forms a beautiful ruby seed head that then turns tan. We put outdoor lighting in amongst them, so at night the light hits and it makes that ruby really blow up. That's for Pamela grass. This is actually not a grass, that's liriopy, but people will plant it as a different. The nice thing about ornamental grasses up here, there's a bunch of them, we won't go over them all today, but there are a bunch of them. They provide movement, which is relaxing. Any little breath of air will make them move. Deer won't eat them. And they're easy to manage. They grow like a grass. But they'll form these seed heads on them with different colors. There's purple fountain grass. There's the Gulf Coast muley. That's the pink one that blooms in the fall. Those beautiful fall blooms. Y'all need to look into ornamental grasses. They're easy to grow in the landscape. But when you plant them, they're always going to be planted in groupies. You're not going to go plant one ruby crystal.
Right.
You're going to plant a groupie of them because they form an area, not just one. But ornamental grasses are really good in that respect.
Full sun?
Full sun I've got some of mine in part shade. They can handle some shade. They can't handle full shade, they'll grow, but they won't get the pretty blooms quite as much. But part shade to full sun. And those you cut back every spring. You just, basically, right now mine are all just brown. They grow back just like regular grass grows back. So you just cut it back. This is a foundation shrub. The reason I want to, it's one that people will use, now they don't use ligustrums and all that from China. This is one called dwarf yopon holly. It is a yopon, but it's not the ones that get tall. These plants will get 3 to 4 foot full grown. That's as big as they're going to get. They don't bloom, but they're a foundation shrub. They're going to be maybe a background shrub with some of our other plants. You do not cut these to the ground every year, folks. These are a shrub. You can do a little pruning on them if you want to, but these are not these are shrubs that stay there every year. The nice thing about it is they're not going to be like that shrub we saw in that picture that was already halfway up the window, and it's going to finish the window within another 5 years. These are going to stay down height-wise and under control. Like I said, about 4 foot by 4 is as big as they get. Most of them about 3 by 3. That's really most of the size when they're full grown. Considered a foundation shrub. Full sun, they will grow in the shade, but I would hate to say 3/4 shade. They won't grow in just like right underneath an oak tree with no sun at all. But 3/4 shade, they'll still grow because they don't bloom. There's no blooms on them. And deer don't eat them. Salvia greggii. Nice thing about salvia greggii, just name a color and it comes in there. We mix ours up. We'll mix different colors together and do them. We have groups in our landscape of 3s and 5s of different colors. Here's how you make full sun. Full sun. If my mother-in-law would just listen to one thing I ever tell her, full sun. She puts them in the shade, they get real leggy and they don't bloom. She goes, they don't look like yours, Dennis. Yours are in full shade, mine are in full sun. No difference. Butterflies love them. Absolutely love them. They are extremely drought tolerant. Once they're established, they're very, very drought tolerant. Here's how I manage these. During the growing season, they're going to bloom like this right here. And then the blooms are just finally going to get old and turn brown. I go in there with a hedge clipper and take the top third of the plant off. Leave 2/3, take the top third off. Within 2 weeks, they're blooming again. When they go through a full blooming cycle, take the top third of the plant off. Right now, I'm taking about 1/2 to 2/3 of the plant off, going into spring. So, when they're blooming and they go through the cycle and finish, take the top third off. They'll come back and bloom again. When they get through a cycle, they all turn brown, take the top third off. Leave them during the winter, they'll leave their leaves during the winter. But going into spring, if they've gotten too big, you can take 2/3 of the plant off. If they're not too big, you can take 1/2 of the plant off. But you don't cut them to the ground, completely to the ground. But salvia greggii, like I said, a really nice plant because you can come up with any colors, a combination of the colors you want.
How big do they get?
A salvia greggii managed that way, mine are about 3 by 3. Managed that way. If you let them get too big, if you don't do what I'm telling you, they'll get real woody, and they'll have a lot of wood with not much leaf on them, and they kind of get ugly looking. If you do like I was saying, the 1/3 and then take the 1/2, there'll be lots of leaves. They'll look like this. Lots of leaves, and not much of that old woody growth that's ugly. Moving here. Mountain laurel. Well, we're about to be there. The mountain laurels will be blooming before you know it. If you've ever opened a package of grape Kool-Aid and smelled it, that's what they smell like. One of the best smells you'll ever smell. Mountain laurels are an evergreen. They are a high-value landscape plant. That mountain laurel, if you could transplant it, which you can't, it will die. Do not come to the hill country and dig up little ones. They're going to die. They don't transplant out of the nature that way. Pots are different. That plant right there is somewhere around $10,000. They're high-value plants. They're slow growing. They are evergreens. You can make them a small tree to get about 15 foot tall, or you can do like ours on this one set. We let them stay bushy all the way from the bottom, and that way they provide the screening. They're going to bloom every spring. These things, well, I think they're bee attractors. There's one right there. They're big bee and butterfly attractors. They smell beautifully, and I'm going to say in about 2 weeks you're going to be seeing mountain laurels bloom. And if they can make them bloom all year, my God, They'd be great. Unfortunately, they bloom once in the spring and that's it, but the only way you're gonna kill one of these is over water. They don't like it. Remember that area I told you in this county that stays wet for 2 weeks after a rain? Don't plant a mountain laurel there. The only thing they need is good drainage. Deer won't eat them. Once they're established, like I said, the only way you kill one is to overwater. And do not cut these back every spring, please. Because if you cut that back, you just lost 15, 20 years of growth. Okay? So don't cut that one back.
I had a question.
Yes.
If you wanted to, so the tree versus the shrub, how would you?
All you're doing is, I just let all the low growth stay. If you're making a tree as a low growth, you're slowly just taking that low growth off and allowing the tree to, just like you would a tree, you're taking the lower limbs off the tree and build it up to the height you want.
Okay, and then the shrub, you just.
I leave it. I don't trim it, I don't do that. Our shrubs are about, they're 15 years old. They're probably 7 by 7, and they're going from the ground to the top. It's solid.
Wow.
So the only way you make them into a tree is to continue to take those lower limbs off. Yes?
It is my understanding that there is a male and female version of the mountain laurel, and it's the male version that smells.
I'm not going to deny, I've never seen one that doesn't smell, so I must be smelling a lot of males. I'm going to check my history later. I've never been the one that doesn't smell, so I don't know. I'm not going to say, we'll Google that and find out. You were right on the other thing, so you might. I did not know that. I've always smelled them and smelled. The ones I smelled have always smelled. So I don't know. I'll find out. I'll answer that question next time I'm back. I'll find out the answer and let you know. She brings some good stuff to the table. Real quick, so we get done. This is Rousselia. The only reason I'm writing the name down, a lot of people see this one that's in our landscape, it's called firecracker plant.
Yes.
But there's another one that's more upright in its growth, and it's not firecracker plant. So that's why I like to look for the word Rousselia. If you see firecracker plant, it's going to have more ferny looking leaves, and the plant's going to cascade more. The other one, the leaves are bigger, and it will grow, the shoots will grow more upright. So there is a difference. That's why I say, look at the word Rousselia, then pick the one you want. Do you want one that cascades more? This one grows more along a walkway. I want it being more upright. Folks, look at the flower shape. The hummingbird feeder just copied them. That's all they did. We plant these in our landscape. They need part shade to full sun. They can handle full sun to part shade, not full shade, because they won't bloom. Hummingbirds just devour this thing. Between that and the terse cat, in the evenings we'll have up to 50 hummingbirds in our backyard, just working there. Now, I think it's neater to sit on your landscape and watch them work the plants than kill each other around one hummingbird feeder. So, very drought tolerant. Okay, the deer will eat them when they first come out, and then they'll leave them alone. So what I do, when they're first coming out, I've got a couple of these long old tomato cages. I'll just lay them on their side, let them get about that tall, and then just take them away. And the deer don't touch them anymore. And I cut these back every year. Just cut them back. They will fill in an area. If you plant like 2 or 3 of them, they'll fill in an area like the blue plumbago will. They're going to get about this tall with the flowers. So what's that? Maybe 3 to 4 feet tall by about 3 foot wide. Very good plant for this area. And again, why put out a hummingbird feeder when you don't need to? Just real quick, 2 small trees, Vitex. The reason I'm giving you 2 pictures, if I go to Austin, they don't like this one. They call this invasive. That's bullshit. That's not invasive. It's just not, guys. Invasive is Chinese tallow trees on the way to Houston, Chinaberry trees, Bermuda grass, elephant ears along the Colorado River. They've just taken over. That's invasive. These guys, I don't see Vitexes going everywhere. Anyway, this plant's going to be about as tall as a mountain laurel, about 15 foot, same type bark. It puts the real pretty flowers on, usually late spring. And they will bloom again, but normally, who's going to get up there and knock that off and make them bloom again? But if you don't want a Vitex, they will lose their leaves in the winter. You do not cut these to the ground, obviously. You can do a Texas persimmon. These are on the back of our ranch. These are worth about $50,000 a piece. But, folks, these are old. I mean, they've got trunks that big. That is an old Texas persimmon. Texas persimmon are going to have a slit bark, little leaves. They get the red, the purple, looks like a big Concord grape. And the birds love to eat them. The deer will actually eat the little, I call them big grapes off of the fruit. You can make grape jelly out of them. Don't plant them, though, like over your patio, because that fruit can fall and it can stain. So, but we have them planted in some rock or your car, yeah, but the point is, deer won't touch them. They can handle sun, they can actually handle shade. They're actually an understory plant underneath oak trees. So they can handle full shade to full sun. As you can see, these are off the sun, and there's some going into shade. They are high-value landscape plants. Go buy one in the nursery. A little one is pretty expensive. So I see people in the hill country just cut these things down to the ground and kill them. So that was $100,000 they just cut down. So again, there's a lot of stupid people out there. Oh, questions? I'm trying to hurry. I'm really trying.
I'm just in the process of pruning mine, shaping it.
Both of them. I shape them to the shape I want to do. They're just like doing trees. If I want to get these off the ground a little bit, I start taking those lower branches off, just like a tree growth. Folks, I don't ever want to get in a hurry with a tree. Those lower branches are giving sunlight to those leaves and making that tree grow. So let them be there during the year. Then come wintertime, before spring, I'm going to start taking some lower branches off. Don't take them all off, because every year I work my way up, but I want to leave as many branches during the growing season so that tree gets as much growth from those leaves each year. But I just basically am going to start working my way up. That's natural shape there. That's just nature.
I was just going to ask, so if you have like the natural ones and there's like babies at the bottom, can those be like dug up and
Sometimes when the little ones, they could, okay.
Is it from
You can
seed or
get,
is it-
if they're under a mountain laurel, they're seeds. Under a persimmon, sometimes they're suckers. Like an oak tree, you'll pull them and they're actually attached. But there will be some seeds fall. What I normally do is dig around them. If I see that long taproot going down, then that's a seed one that came up. But if you pull on it and it's just not, that means it's connected to the roots and they're suckers. Now remember, don't be careful what you're spraying around them in, because if you're spraying those suckers with chemical, they're going right up into the, I see people do suckers on the live oak tree that way. They'll spray all the suckers. Guess what they're attached to? The roots of the live oak. So that live oak may not die, but it sure didn't help. Those are two high-value plants.
You know, that Vitex that Dennis is talking about real quick, we had a mild winter until the last two cold fronts that came through. First part of January, I still had blossoms on my Vitex.
Yes.
So they can last, depending on the weather, you can still experience in seeing those light blue, violet blossoms.
Yes, you can. Okay, got a couple more and we're done. Yuccas, deer, yuccas are going to need sunlight. They're more of a desert plant. They're going to need sunlight. The deer will not eat this. The deer will not eat this. They will eat that. This is in Kingsville, Texas. You can see I went to school there. You can see the palm trees down there. But this is a Spanish dagger. These are high-value plants because of the beautiful cream bloom. Once the plant gets bigger, the deer can't reach it. When they're little, the deer can. But the deer will eat that. They need full sun. You don't cut these back. You can cut the blooms off, but you don't cut the plant back. They very low water use. And like I said, deer won't eat the plant, but they will eat the blooms. I always grow these outside your daughter's teenage bedroom window. Those have very sharp edges. Bougainvillea in front of those. If he gets through all of that, it was meant to be a couple. It was meant to be. Rosemary, I just want to take real quick on rosemary. There's two types of rosemary. Prostrate rosemary, I have to watch it, not phosphate. Prostrate rosemary and upright rosemary. Now, upright rosemary can get 5 by 5, 5 foot tall by 5 foot tall. Most of what you're buying is the prostrate rosemary. This is on our landscape. See how it cascades over rocks. Those little blue flowers are the biggest bee attractors you've ever seen in your life. They make great honey. Deer will not eat this plant. They just will not eat it. but you can't cut from them and cook. They need full sun, and the only way you kill them is the same way as a mountain laurel, poor drainage. If they don't have, if they have poor drainage, they can die. So, and I grow these for about 5 years, and then I take them out and put a new one in. Because what happens is they get real woody near the base, and you end up with a lot of the green further and further and further out. So I grow about 5 years, I take them out and put a new one in, because I get tired of screwing around with them. But you don't have to, but they just end up with that heavy wood base, and you end up with very small green flowers on the outside. I want to get y'all out of here. Agarita, I'm just now starting to smell it. Agarita, this is a native holly. If you get in the hill country, these things grow everywhere, but I've seen them in Seguin, Texas, growing everywhere. Why go buy a holly when you buy an agarita? They're native. Right now, they're putting on little yellow flowers. Folks, if you have mountain laurels and agaritas, between the two, they smell unbelievable. Unbelievable. These things are blooming at the ranch in Lockhart, and I walk by them, and oh my God, they smell so good. But the flowers is really yellow, and then they make the little red berries. People get jelly out of them. Birds and deer will eat the berries too, so they're a good wildlife plant. They're an evergreen. They stay green all the time. They can grow in full sun, but they love to be an understory plant. In the hill country, they're called understory plants. They grow under oak trees and things like that. Full grown, throw some sheets out. About this tall. Full grown. Yeah, what about 7.5 foot tall? Yeah, 4 to 5, yeah. Folks, mine are just starting to bloom. If you see some in the nursery, smell them. Once you smell them, you go, oh, I've got to have those. And maintenance is very low. Deer don't touch them. Sinisa, I think 3 more, I'm done. Sinisa, Texas sage, Silverado sage, that kind of thing. They have the white flowered one and the purple flower. The white flower ones do have a little more problems with insect damage. So I don't notice the white flowers much. That's got white flowers on it. You see the white flowers. So I like the purple flowers. 2 weeks after a rain, these things will be in full bloom. So if you go down around Edinburgh, Everville, Katu, all that country, those hillsides that are caliche where they grow native, if it rains and go down there 2 weeks later, those hillsides will be solid lavender purple. Folks, these are a shrub. They are going to get 5 to 6 foot tall by 5 to 6 foot wide. They need full sun, and you can't cut these back. People will start trying to trim them back to keep them 3 foot tall. You're going to have that window situation. They are a bigger plant. Deer won't eat them. They're extremely drought tolerant, but they do need full sun.
Is this the sage you eat?
No. You could eat it, but it's not the sage you eat. No. It isn't a family, and it can be, but it's not the sage you would eat. But it is in the family. Pots, they make a dwarf one that could be grown in some big pots, but it would be a challenge. I don't know who asked the question, but it would be a real challenge, I think. They are coming out with a dwarf one. Now, there is a dwarf one out now called Silverado sage. It's not dwarf. It's still big. But they are coming out with a dwarf one that will be about 3.5 to 4 foot. That'll be out next year. That one could be grown in pots. Yes?
To answer a previous question, it's not more plants, trees, or hermaphrodites. Which means they have both male and female.
Male and female, yeah, I was just gonna say.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. But I appreciate that. And I appreciate you. You got some interesting crap up there. I mean, it's good stuff. No, it's good. That was neat. I did not know the flowers on Turkscap. I didn't know that. But you have another question.
Yeah,
Or do you have more knowledge for us? Which is, you might have
actually,
both.
that plant actually blooms when it's getting ready to rain.
When it's getting ready to rain and after rain, it doesn't both. If it's going to rain, it'll bloom.
Rain is coming.
And once it does rain, about 2 weeks later, it'll bloom again. Yeah. Yes.
But can it be transplanted?
Oh.
I got two that are in the wrong area.
Yeah. Okay. They can be transplanted in your landscape fairly successful. If you try to go find them out in nature and dig them up, 99% are going to die. But I've seen people move them from one part of their landscape to another fairly successfully. You'll want to do that though. It's getting late. You'd want to do that in late fall, early winter. let the roots grow during the winter time, and then be ready for spring. Right now, it would be a little tough, because they're gonna try to make all that adjustment, and I know it's hard to believe, but summertime will be here before we know it. Okay, going through Alice, this is the hill country Esperanza. Deer won't touch it, gets the little yellow golden flowers, it handles full sun, as you can see, part shade. It can handle some shade. It's going to get about 3 to 4 foot tall by 3 to 4 foot wide. I will trim this one back every year. Some years I'll trim it all the way to the ground. Some years if there's a little bit of green, I'll trim it down to the green. But normally I'll trim it all the way to the ground. But what I like about it, provides color, and deer don't bother it. Deer will not bother it. Where the Esperanza, remember, they'll graze on it early. Another one real quick is Russian sage. Russian sage is a newer one out that everybody loves. It is in the sage family, so it is one though that provides these beautiful purple flowers. The deer won't touch it. It needs full sun. It is extremely drought tolerant, like all sages are. I plant them in groupings. In other words, as you see, there's a grouping of them here. They're going to get about 3 foot by 3 foot full grown. And when they go through a bloom cycle and get through, they'll go through about 4 or 5 of them a year. When they go through, I'll just knock the tops off with a weed eater, and they'll be blooming again. I got one more, we're done.
They renamed that one to Ukraine sage.
Ukraine sage, okay. Yeah, because if it were Russian sage, well, that's in Ukraine, if there's a little yellow one, it'd be perfect. But anyway, we won't get into all that crap, let me tell you. Jeez. Poor guys. Jerusalem sage is the last one. It's another sage. This is an evergreen, folks. This one's an evergreen. I've got it in my landscape. It never loses its leaves. This one will get fairly big if you don't trim it. I do not trim this one to the ground every year. If you just, it might not even be on your list. I change this up, so just add this one to it. The presentations are all on the computer if you want them. Y'all can pull up. Jerusalem sage, if left untrimmed, it'll get 5 by 5. I trim mine to keep them, I trim them periodically after they go through a bloom cycle. Most of mine are about 3 by 3. They get these yellow flowers on them. They're beautiful. Deer won't touch them. They're in the sage family, so they like sun, and they don't have a problem with drought. And I don't trim them to the ground. I prune them to the size I want. They're easy, but they are an evergreen, and that's nice. Okay, so there's a lot more plants out there. I mean, you know, you didn't get to my rock rose or there's thousands. These are just some that we know will work, and this one would grow in a pot. We know that, and so will Russian sage. That's another one that grows a lot in pots. These are just some different plants than the old standard. Go to Home Depot and see some stuff in there that will work in the landscape in Seguin, Guadalupe County, and surrounding areas, and they're easy to manage. Remember that maintenance is a factor. These are fairly easy to manage. So I ran 5 minutes late. Sorry about that. Thank y'all. I want your soil test. We will do your soil test next time and show you how to interpret it. I know you're not going to look at that formula, so don't worry about it. We'll show you how to do it, and then we'll review your plans the next time I'm here. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No problem, no problem. You can cancel that off and get right to it.
Sorry, I didn't mean
We had a freeze.
He's going to do it first time. He's going to do compost and compost and mulch.
If we could get time to it.
And he'll try to take a break around noon.
Right.
So,
Radio?
just welcome.
Do I have video?
Are you on the radio?
Am I on the radio? Do I sound like I'm on the radio? Hello, everybody.
No, I'm not on the radio.
But anyway, I'm going to cover Earth Time first, and I'm going to do something a little bit different. Did y'all hand out these? Okay. Okay. Well, y'all eventually get one of these. This also covers Earth Time kind of a deal. This comes from Take Care of Texas, which is part of the TCQ, which I kind of TCEQ. Which I kind of belong to, has everything you want to know about what you should be taking care of. And also, Earth Time, I'm going to do something a little bit different from last time. Let me see if this
And then, excuse me for interrupting, and as Peter mentions his Earth kind, he was a scheduled presenter earlier when our class started, we had to cancel on that first day.
Right.
But you all were given his presentation on Earth kind with all your paperwork, so you all should have that, okay?
I'm gonna listen anyway.
No worries, if you don't have it with you, get used to this thing. Is this the changer, Tim?
What?
Is this the changer?
Yeah.
I guess I don't get a mic today, Paul? No mic. Too loud. Okay, if you don't have it, here's the QR code, the slideshow. I do,
He's having difficulty. I'm sorry. Frank will help.
okay, I got it. This is the big one. The big one goes forward, yeah. Yes, sir. Okay, so there's the QR code. Yeah, this is, we're supposed to present back with the big freeze early in January. Hopefully, I'm going to give you all some tools to, y'all can figure out things on your own and make you look smarter. Because when you become a master gardener, everybody thinks you have a PhD in gardening, but you don't, right? So be aware of that. So, but like a guy I used to work with, he says, I don't keep a memory of what I can look up. So, and I kind of adopt that somewhat. I guess I got a point here. Right? There you go. So I did a survey. I think as of this morning, 16 of y'all had done it. In that survey, I always like to find out who I'm talking to because I do a lot of presentations. I do 5 different types of presentations. This is one of them. I do this probably twice a year, and it's only for the master gardeners. And I like to know who I am talking to. So this is y'all, and only 60 of the 35 have responded. Some of y'all have small areas, small lot, like a city lot, which is okay, suburban lot, suburban size, a little bit like well, let me back up. A small area, like a condo, balcony area, that's all you have, a townhouse. That's okay, you could garden in that area. You saw one from Dennis, I guess Chicago one was good. Rural area, and some of y'all have, one has a ranch greater than 40 acres, which is okay. So basically everybody's in the suburban size and rural size. So I'm going to try to talk to y'all on that side. I'm kind of in the rural side myself. So, and I like that. And that's why I like master gardeners in Guadalupe. I'm a master naturalist in Bexar County. I like them over there. But you guys are more to my flavor here in this area. And the reason being is Bexar County tends to talk to city dwellers with smaller lot size and may not have a garden with edibles and so forth. So what are we doing with Earth Kind? And I'm going to try to do this very quickly. And one of the things why I'm going to do it very quickly is because a lot of this has already been repeated to y'all, and I'm just going to glaze over that stuff. And I meant to have it in front of me, and that is your schedule. So y'all already covered like landscape design. I'm not going to cover landscape design in detail like Dennis did. Plant growth and development is kind of Earth Kind, knowing that. Also, insect and IPM, y'all already covered that. So, but I know y'all going to cover Texas Superstar, which is another topic in here. Water harvesting is another topic, so I'm just going to condense it. So really what I'm trying to do with this survey is give y'all a benchmark on where you're at today, because I want y'all to grow also as far as master gardeners. You know, you're at one point in your master gardening or your gardening career, and you want to see, are you going in the right direction as far as Texas agri-life? You know, are we being Earth Kind? Are we just going out there and digging up and plopping things? And even when you talk to the public, and you will be doing volunteer work, at least I do a lot of volunteer work, that I talk to the public a lot. And when I do talk to the public, I want to make sure that I'm current and I give them the right tools or the location or brochures that they can work with, you know. And here's a simple one that's very free, that I get, and you can only order 50 at a time, no, 25 at a time, and so I had to order twice for this class. But anyway, so y'all have one of these. It kind of gives you a synopsis how to take care of your yard, because when you look at yard-wise, people, yards are bigger. We always blame the agriculture, the farmer, of doing pesticides in big quantities. Actually, it's the homeowners that are doing it. So this is why there's this program called EarthKind. So what we were trying to do, encourage water conservation, and that's what you were basically hearing in the landscaping design, you know, conserving water, because water is not, you know, people are moving to Texas, but they're not bringing their water, right? So Texas is one of the fastest growing areas. One of the other things that I do is I notice populations in like Comal County is another growing really fast. Guadalupe is not growing as fast as Comal, but Bexar County definitely is 1.7 million. I want to say Comal is at 700,000. Your Guadalupe is probably about 400,000. But anyway, there's some growth there. And we got to make sure that, you know, when we do talk to the public, you know, we're talking in these terms. Reduction of fertilizer and pesticides, landscaping with energy conservation, you know, just looking at the movement of the sun. You heard that from Dennis. You know, you got to know where's your north. If you don't know where your north is, you know, I definitely, that was the first thing I did when I moved into our property. Where's north? Because I know that's when the cold wind's going to come. And to me, I want to protect my plants, my lemon trees. I planted my lemon trees in a certain area, which eventually they froze. They were on the south side. They lasted several years, but until the big freeze. So I now have another strategy, and I still produce lemons. Okay, so those are the strategies for EarthKind landscaping. EarthKind, if you go to the website, there is a website for EarthKind, and it covers a lot of other stuff like vegetables. You know, EarthKind, how do you do that? They go through a whole series of that. What else? They do. You're all going to have a class on Texas Star, very good class, and I know Dennis was going through some plants. Those plants are great, but if you go to the Texas Star, there's a whole bunch more. Those are plants that have gone through some testing, and I'll get more into that in a little bit. So let's just look at how we're doing today as y'all. This is how y'all get your, what I call your benchmark. You got a couple of y'all that are, let me just see if I can use this. Use a laser pin here.
Is this our ages?
No. No, this is actually the test that there were 16 of y'all that did a test. All of y'all remember the quiz? Mm-hmm. Sure. Okay, some of y'all did the quiz. This is not your age. Y'all are doing remarkably. We have 105 here. It was actually 104. So two of y'all are really pretty good on it. But if you're like me, you know, I have taken it several times, and I make sure, okay, what did they really mean by that question? And I went back and redid it when I first did it back 2017. I do it on, I actually, the website that is on there at Texas AgriLife, the quiz that they give, has some bugs in it, and it's had some bugs continuously. When I started this class, 5 years ago, I think, 2019, the quiz was working fine, and I would go off of it and all this, and all of a sudden it stopped working. And I've complained to AgriLife in A&M land, and they haven't fixed it yet. But anyway, so I went ahead and made my own quiz based off that. So this is what you're seeing. This is everybody. So you got a couple of people, but what I really want to take a look at is here. You know, that's okay if you're down here, you know, and that's where you want to say, okay, what am I doing wrong in my landscaping as far as being EarthKind? You know, so if you scored low, and maybe by the end of the end of this season, in May or so, you take it again, and maybe every year you take it again and see, you know, what am I missing, and maybe gradually move up to here. And that's the plan of why we're doing this and why EarthKind is very important in showing people where they should be as far as being earth kind. And why do we want to be earth kind? You know, planning and design, we talked about practice turf areas, you know, appropriate plant selection, and we heard that a lot, and I think that's very important, and that's very big into my world is plant selection. You know, you heard the Turk's cap, that's actually in Spanish is manzanilla, which means small apple, so that's why it's edible. And then that, what was that other question you had? On mountain laurel. Mountain laurel is actually a bisexual, which means it has the stenom and the pistil in the same flower, so that's where the confusion is. It is not dioecious, and that's the question you were asking, and the question was, dioecious means that the male is in one plant and the female is in the other. Persimmon, the Texas persimmon is a dioecious plant, which means you have to have a male and a female if you want to have fruit. So that wasn't noted. But anyway, so those are things, plant selection becomes very important. You know, so you want to know why doesn't that persimmon nut fruiting? It's probably because it's all male. Okay, soil improvement. Y'all talk about in soil improvement. Y'all been taking tests on, or taking sample quality tests on that, and then we'll talk a little bit about irrigation. And then effective use of mulch. And then I'll be talking about mulch a little bit more deeper. Appropriate maintenance. You heard from Dennis, a lot of maintenance, you know, getting the right plant, minimizing the maintenance. You don't want to be a slave to your yard. And you want to find techniques to free up your time on that. And knowing the right plant in the right place is very important. Okay, so the quality of landscape that conserves water and protects the environment. So those are the things that we're talking about today. So, is that up there? Okay. Yes, I can't see with the glare. So planning, I won't go into the detail, but if you go into Texas Agri-Life Extension, there's some more details about how, you know, you need some ideas. I know y'all have to do a planning design of your own plant, or your own landscape. This is mine. I know Dennis showed his, which is very brave. We're very brave doing our own landscape. So this is mine. This is actually the plot that I got we actually bought the land. We built the house, and actually I was one of the reasons why I'm more earth kind of person, because I really feel guilty when we built our house in 2012 and finished it in 2013. I actually had to cut down 16 trees, and they're all mature trees in order to put it. So I've been paying for that ever since, of guilt from cutting those trees. But I planted a lot more trees than that. Although they always say I won't go to that quote. But the wise man said, "We'll plant a tree, but we'll plant a tree. We'll never know that the beauty of that tree, because you will never sit under that tree for shade." So I love oak trees. They're one of my favorite, but I do have biodiversity of trees in order to bring. So what did I do? So the first thing I did, all the greens, I know he talked about colors. So I'm guilty of color, but I only did it to show an example. And this is actually the one I used when I was behind the desk where you're sitting today, or the table. All the greens were the existing trees, and then what I wanted to do, put in the natives. So I actually put the natives in the front, and I put my edibles in the back, and that was my plan. And in gardening, yes, you want to put your edibles closer to your kitchen. I've become a better cook since then, because I know where my herbs are, I know where my vegetables are, I know where my greens are, and all that. So they're to the back, and I could protect them from the deer. I do have a deer issue, and what's in the front are really, like Dennis was saying, there's some deer-resistant plants that I do put in the front. I like to put, a lot of the salvias I put up in the front. Anything that's deer-resistant, it's all up there. Okay, there are some, just an FYI, some templates out there if you want to use templates. I found this on the Austin website, and they have very good templates, for you to start off with, whether you're child-friendly or, going down deer-resistant, whatever you're, think about where you want to design. there's templates out there for you to use. So you're not there left alone. Another thing that out there is there are also other classes that you could see besides or do around natives. If you're into natives, anybody into the Native Plant Society here? Okay, very good. Native, or you're into natives? Okay, you're into natives, very good. I'm into natives also. I'm very big into natives. That person, and actually when I did the quiz, I was really referring, and I think Dennis mentioned it also, you really want to just landscape around there. You know, for me, you know, I'm on 6 acres. I just do, you know, about a quarter acre to the back and about a quarter acre to the front of my house, and then the rest, it's all natural. You know, I try to keep it as natural as possible as a master naturalist. I do, as far as natives, you know, yes, we tend to design to aesthetics, which is great, but we also have to consider nature out there, because as soon as we put in that boxwood or whatever, you know, and I'm glad he was talking about the 70s, because I always say the same thing to my wife. I said, oh, that's a 70s landscape, you know, and I'm always complaining about going to a neighborhood and seeing a butterfly just, and it was a monarch just going to lot to house and not being able to land, because they're all landscaped in the 70s, boxwoods and just non-native plants there. But anyway, so the Native Plant Society does have, you could go to that website, they do have classes. As a matter of fact, there's a class coming up, I think this Saturday, and they do have like level 1 if you want to start learning about landscaping with natives. Very good class. I'm doing one with the Native Plant Society in May, I believe, and there's the classes that you could sign up. They have classes in San Antonio, I believe, in New Braunfels, and Bernie. Okay, so in landscaping, some of y'all had designs already. 10 of y'all said, yep, you have a design, which is very good. That means you're planning. It's good to plan before, have a master plan. 6, no, that's okay. You know, this class is going to force you to have one. So by the end of the class, everybody should be a yes. Okay? What else on landscaping? Turf. What percentage of the turf should you have? You know, some of y'all have 30 to 50%. Some of y'all have less than 30. Okay. Greater than 50. What happens if you go greater than 50? Let me just talk about the greater than 50. Because 7 of y'all had that. What happens, and I don't know if that person was also talking about beyond the scope of their area, or those folks who are talking about, you know, if you're in a big property, I let it go native. I do have little blue stem on mine. If you saw my blueprint, I plant, there is a turf grass that has 3 natives, and you can buy it at the American Seed Company, and that is, it has, let me see if I can remember them, mesquite, was it curly mesquite, little blue, I don't think it's blue, little blue stem, and then what's the Texas grass? Anybody know the Texas? Huh? No. Well, we all know the Texas flower, right? Which is blue-botted. But Cydox grama is a Texas grass, so it has that in there. So it's a short grass. Oh, the buffalo grass was the third one. So those 3, and why they started to mix it up, if y'all heard, you know, way back when, it used to be only buffalo grass, and they would sell buffalo grass only. What happens is buffalo grass goes through dormancy around October, and these 2 other grasses stay a little bit greener, a little bit longer, less mowing. You could probably mow like once or twice a year and get away with it, okay? In water conservation, most of us at use landscape, we probably use 30 up to 50% of our water for irrigation. That's a lot. And as water is getting tighter and tighter, I've been to presentations by the water board, the state water board, and they are really running out. If you look at the number of people that are coming to Texas and where the growth is, you know, we're running out of water. We're running into disaster. But here's my water bill, I believe, and and I'm sticking my neck out again. And one of the ways you can determine how much water you're really using in your irrigation is it's a simple rule of thumbs. You look at your January and then you look at your July and see if there's a big growth, a big spike, and that difference. If we're not using our landscape when it's cold and freezing out there, we're probably not turning on our faucet. So you take the difference, you could see that's it. But you can see my August, I think I had a water leak that year, and that caused my big old spike. And now that is the hottest part of the year. So September, October, I know in AgriLife they say that. I think we're slowly moving to looking at August and September and comparing the two, and that's the difference. If that was the case, I know this year I also had put some new fruit trees in, and that, you heard Dennis also. I'm trying to keep things rolling here. You got to really water a lot when you put the first year, and then slowly take it out. But mulching is also another good indicator, and composting will help also. So there was a difference. I had like a 25% difference there that I had in my usage. But I really should probably start looking at February. February seemed to be colder than January this year, and it seems to be sliding due to climate change. Those that, whether you believe it or not, but you could see a factor moving over just in my water bill also. There's other indicators I won't get into. What else? So over the years, you can see my water usage is done good, and then 22, 23, those years I kind of went up 40%. I was hitting that 50%, which us as master gardeners, we really want to make sure that we're either ourselves preaching what we say and start reducing that water. And I'm down. Last year was 25% is what I gathered. Okay. So looking at the quiz again, our plants with the like requirement grouped together. So are you hydro zoning? So are you putting like plants? Are you putting your cactus with your azaleas? Different water needs. So only 3 have not considered that. 13 of y'all said, yep, yeah, you got to consider that. So that's, so these are just ideas. You want to make sure that you're just touching it, or something that you haven't thought about, you do. Okay, soil. I won't go into soil because y'all have covered the soil, and that's why we kind of tend to do this at the beginning of the year, or the class starts. So soil preparation. You do want to put in organic matter, 25 to 50% into your soil. Rule of thumbs, till in like 6 inches of compost, and especially around garden landscaping beds and so forth. And then it says that for tree planting, no soil preparation is recommended, and you heard that earlier too. But adding mulch, and you'll hear why you want to add mulch to top off trees and so forth in a bit. I'll get more into detail. Okay. So going back to organics, how much organic matter are you incorporating into your landscape planting area? And the right answer was 25 to 50% seems to be the right answer according to Texas AgriLife. You just cannot have soil you can't grow a plant with just sand, clay, or we all know that. That's kind of obvious, or silt, the third one. You have to have some organic in there, and that's why compost is very important. It brings those organics in there. It's bringing in microbes and so forth, which really help the plant. All right, appropriate selection. This is my favorite part. You heard plant selection. I won't go into the deep, but you heard the less water need, the reduce the need of soil modification, no fertilizer, reduce the fertilizers. and so forth, reduces pests. You know, using the natives, I think, really reduces those pests, tolerates stressful environments, and that's such as drought. That's very important. So you do want to plan to the ecoregion that you live in. Okay, so I know in the plant selection, you got to really look at your ecoregion. Everybody lives in Guadalupe County, is that right? Anybody live outside of Guadalupe County? Okay, you live in?
Wilson County?
Wilson, okay, I'm a Wilson County. Sandy soil, right?
Sandy, yeah.
Okay, sandy soil, that's my problem. Here, probably in Guadalupe is probably more clayish soil, is that what I mean, or sandy loam?
Yep.
What, clayish? Okay, so y'all are dealing with different, we're dealing with different environments. Plants grow differently in sandy soil. You know, it rains and 15 minutes later, there's no puddles, right? So here, 24 hours later, you still have a puddle, you know. So big difference. So know your area, and then from there, there is and this might have been a little bit confusing when you were doing the test, but there's a whole list, and you could pull it up. Before I would print this out and give it to everybody, but so AgriLife come up with just kind of an index number, you know, from 1 to 10, you know, and I only printed what hit the top 8 or number 8. If your plant wasn't in here on this list, okay, it may be, I'm guilty of saying zero scale. I'm kind of think of Xavier, a zero scale. Yeah. But anyway, so these are good plants. There's lots of plants in here that are mostly native plants. But there are some that are, you know, tolerant to our conditions here in Texas. Yes. Oh yeah, if y'all want copies of this, it's. Two pages. Yeah, 2 pages. Okay, y'all will have a set of that. Front and back is good. Okay. So this is a good list, and there's the QR code on there too. And this is just some of the stuff. I didn't copy what was updated. So this is the 11 response. The Friday before the class that we were supposed to have, there was only 11 responses, but I didn't update this one. But yeah, you can see how people have Turk's cap. You know, we talked to, which is good. Autumn sage is another word for. He mentioned autumn sage is another name for Salvia gregae. Yeah. So olive trees. That's good. I'm just running through it. Anybody any questions about their plants, if they were drought tolerant or not?
You know, that Turk's cap you just mentioned is a nice perennial that comes back every year, but most of the pictures you see of a Turk's cap is red.
Yeah.
Yes.
But they do have that lighter pinkish version also.
Yes.
Okay? So if you want a little bit different, you want the same basic plant, but it may be a different. From red, they do have that light pastel.
Right, and the small versus the big, the small one is a native plant. The big ones are actually from South America. They're actually, Turk's cap goes all the way down to South America, and they're huge from there. So that's the ones that they're bringing up in the landscape. So I bought one from the Botanical Garden in San Antonio, and it's the big one. But it's okay, yeah, the hummingbirds love it. So no questions on plants that may be drought
I haven't
tolerant?
heard anything about pyrocanthus.
Pyrocanthus. Trying to think. They're drought. What about? Are they drought
Yeah,
tolerant?
what about?
I'm gonna say so.
Well, they got berries and no mockingbirds like them. I don't know if they're native or not. I see them here and there.
I know that my dad used to love those, and I did too for a while, and we grew them up in North Texas, but they check them out real good on Google and everything else, because they do have some issues with a type of, not a fungus, but a blight per se, and it will really cut them down big time.
I think they're non-natives. I'm trying.
Beautiful red berries during the winter time, yeah. What?
What are you
Pyracantha.
And a lot of people, you know, they're that big shrub vine, and they're woody.
Or a
And
tree.
you can take your inside of your fence, outside of the fence, and put string lines up and have them grow whatever you want them to look like.
I lived at a place in New Braunfels 20 years ago that had a tree
Yeah.
in the backyard. Mockingbird just guarded it like it was Fort Knox.
Okay, I got a lot to cover, so I'm gonna move on, press on. Okay, so, earth kind, so the printout you're gonna get, hopefully, you know, Pyracantha, I wanna say it is a part of the xeriscape, plants, xeriscape, I guess I'm gonna say. But anyway, I don't know if it's gonna be on here, but, look it up, like you said. There is a database that I like to go look at, and it'll tell you a lot more about all plants, or native plants also. So, looking at the value, so you want to really end up in 8 or better in this value scheme, and have more than 50% of those plants be in your garden. You don't want something that needs a lot of fertilizer, needs a lot of water, you know, and you're babying it. And and the day that you go on vacation is the day it decides to die, because there's a heat wave, and then you come back and it's dead and you got to start all over again. So you're saving money when you just stick to something that's native. Okay, thank you. All right, and then the Texas Superstar. I know y'all gonna have more. Y'all gonna get a book on this Texas Superstar, right? Because I used to hand them out, and then so y'all had the classes.
Probably not the booklet, because we have harder and harder issues getting the latest copies. So what Texas AgriLife tells us, to a large degree, is go to their website
And pull up the PDF?
and pull it up a digital version.
Okay, and there's
Because it's so expensive, it's a beautiful booklet.
right. It is a beautiful booklet, but with costs going up, there is the website. You can pull up the PDF. There's a lot of good stuff in there, and there's stuff that and you'll find out when you do that class with it later on in the sessions. You'll have more info and more detail. But when they basically, what they're doing is they have all these test sites. These are all the test sites that they do the testing, and they kind of put them through the ringer as far as growing them and so forth. Something that if you do go on vacation, they'll live. Okay, so there is an online brochure. I just wanted to double check if y'all didn't do it. There's the QR code also. But me as a native plant person, you know, there's a couple of things I tell people not to do. I know a little bit opposite from what Dennis was talking about, like the dwarf Mexican petunia. I'm guilty of putting that out there. But I will tell you, as a master naturalist, I do a lot of field observations. I actually go to the native natural areas and I do observations. And some of the observations I see is Texas petunias growing wild by themselves and taking over the native plants section, or in a down a creek bed or so full of Mexican petunias. And they're kind of pushing out the natives, and which impacts the pollinators, which impacts the birds, so there is I don't totally agree with a lot of this stuff here, but I'm just telling you my opinion. But it is still drought tolerant and so forth. It does say water. Also the gold lantana, you saw it earlier. That is also a non-native. The one that's native is actually, the way I remember it, is it's an orange yellow. Yeah, so I always think yellow orange, is the native one, where the other ones that are gold are not. Just a tidbit there. What else? The red yucca. Yeah, that was new that year, the red yucca. You saw that as far as, that was one of the ones that he showed earlier. Also, not only do they do landscape, but they also do the woody shrubs. You know, these are good. I am into roses also. I gotta admit, I got my, I am into roses because I like the
Hybrid tea rose.
huh?
Hybrid tea rose.
Well, no, I actually like the, what do you call it? Once it's bloom, it has the pod behind it. That's actually good vitamin C. No, not the rosettes, it's something else. But anyway, it hit me on the way. Huh?
Rose hip is what.
Rose hip, there you go. Thank you. Ding, 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 ding. Winner. Okay, and then I know we talked about, and Dennis must know my presentation because, yes, the Texas lilac vitex is considered in the invasive species, but I've grown it also way before I was a master gardener, master naturalist, but I have not seen it really produced out in the wild like folks say on the invasive species count. But nevertheless, that's what they say, but I'm just putting it out there. It is a beautiful plant. Okay, just a tidbit. Also, some other plants that are there, vegetable edibles is good. You know, if you're looking for plants now it's spring, these are probably a good list to look at and see, you know, if that nursery has it. Okay, turf grass selection. Y'all covering turf grass already? Yes. Okay, I'm gonna just glide through it unless somebody has some questions. Roses, you know, there is an earth kind rose selection. The only reason I love roses, I know I said I love natives mostly. The only reason I attribute to my mother, who used to have roses in her yard, and my mother-in-law. I do have a memorial at the house for both of them, and Belinda's Dream is what I use, and I started propagating that, and it really is a fantastic rose, and it does have hips, and so does the knockout roses have good hips. So I look at roses for hips and vitamin C. So it's an edible to me, and it does provide beauty. Okay. And then other ways of looking at your property is based on ecoregions, and you'll hear that a lot. Y'all know what ecoregion y'all are in?
9A.
Well, ecoregion. Ecoregion would be postal. So Guadalupe is right, basically around here, right? So you're 3, yes, post oak savanna. So that just means that if there was no land here, you'd be in a post oak savanna. You know, when the buffalo were roaming, you would actually, they would be going through post oaks and some savanna, just open plains and so forth, be rumbling through. So this whole, it actually starts here and it works all the way up. And then I'm down in Wilson, those in Wilson County are actually, you know, sandy soil. We're actually the tip of going south, the 6, it's more going into a desert we're now going to desert, and that's why it's a little bit harder, but not as bad. I'm trying to see what 6 was. South Texas Plains.
Yeah, but where we live, very, very, very sandy soil in Wilson County, there's no mesquite trees, because they don't grow in that sandy soil.
Right.
I'll bring you some.
No, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's some other places that you could look at Native Seed Company. I used to bring books also to the Native Seed Company because they used to give them out free, and I said, oh, anything that's free I like to bring. But now they charge $2, and so, but you could get it online also from the seed company, and they do have that store here in New Braunfels. It's not too far off 35, past the Canyon Lake exit. I think the next exit is you just come around and it's the Native American Seed Company, and they do have that turf grass. If you're into putting seeds, they do have the seeds. And then the Native Plant Society, there is one in Guadalupe County. I would get involved with that. I'm not part of that society. I'm a part of the San Antonio Society. It's a little bit bigger, but the Guadalupe County, I know some of those folks, some of them are master naturalists. You may want to listen to their presentation. Do they need to do continuing education hours also? No?
Yes.
No?
Well,
Not this year.
Not this year.
Not this year?
Get plenty here.
Next year, when you start doing your continuing education, that does count towards your continuing education hours, and when you attend those meetings, just as well as our monthly master gardening one. So here's another one that I'd like to give you all information, and I know she just walked out, but this is where I looked up where a plant, what kind is it? Is it dioecious? Is it or not? Is it bisexual? Is it, so this is a very good place. It's also, I look at it to see how do you propagate that plant? Because, you know, things are getting expensive. I like to propagate. I'm a big propagator. Y'all gonna do propagation here. Learn that. It'll save you a ton of money. When I do my trimming, you know, what was it? Cenizo or Texas sage. It's actually, you get soft cuttings. You could actually trim it, cut it, and grow it again. And that's where I give away a lot of my plants based on trimming my plants for the spring. I'll see if they propagate. Okay, landscape mulch. I'm going to just cover it now. So you got your organic mulch, you got your inorganic mulch. Organic is such as straw, leaves, bark, needles. I don't know if there's any bark needles around here. This is probably more for East Texas. Compost, I don't like to say that compost should be a mulch. I like to say it should be under the mulch, but not on top the top plant, or the top material on top. Reason being is that it goes through a process of using microbes to break down organic material to a certain point, but when you put it to UV light, like the sun, it actually kills all that. So it kind of dries it out. And you'll find in my next session is that you want to keep compost kind of moist. Inorganic, you know, the obvious, something that's not organic. So I'm not going to go. What I do want to discover, talk about, and I just got a note from them, is if you want mulch at 60 yards free, or not free, it may be free. You got landscapers that will come, that do, or arborists that go out and trim and shred their wood chips, or their wood, and they have wood chips. You could sign up to Chip Drop. Anybody heard Chip Drop? Okay, so I've been on Chip Drop for several years, and last year I got about 60 yards of that, and it took me like 6 months to get rid of, put it into the yard. And there it is. So that's about 60 yards right there. So if you're willing to get 60 yards, that's great. Just remember, you know, you really have to be very specific, because I do know that they did bring me some Chinese berries. China berries. Thank you. And I was very cautious in making sure that I wasn't spreading China berries in my yard. Okay, so mulching, here's the numbers. Looks like a good percentage of y'all don't mulch yet, but will be hopefully in the future. Mulching is very good because if you know trees, they want more fungal matter, and what happens when you put mulch down, it creates a lot of fungal matter underneath, like mycorrhizal and all that fungus, and that's what they use. They have a symbiotic relationship between the roots the trees have with the fungus matter, and they do transfer sugars. Sugars are transferred by the tree to the fungal matter, and then they provide nutrients to the tree. And very, very interesting. Okay, water runoff. So anybody have irrigation systems? One? Sprinklers? Okay. If you didn't have sprinklers, you just, here the common sense is just to check your sprinklers once a year. You know, do you have, you know, making sure that if it's raining, you don't have your sprinklers on. There are gadgets to where if it's raining, it shuts it off. It doesn't allow your sprinkler to work. Little things like that are kind of the obvious. And then checking how how the water is being sprayed. On there, there's called a fish can tuna check. I know there's some funnels that you could get, really fancy, but I leave that to the irrigation guys. I just put cans out there just to make sure that I'm getting all my zones. In the new house, I have not put my sprinkler in yet. I'm waiting to finish all my landscaping and then I'll put it in. But do check it. If you do have a water hose, you can check to see if it's not dripping from there. So everything needs to be just checked from a irrigation point of view. Okay? Being that there's only one person, drip system, you'll all be all covering the drip here in another class, so I'm going to just go over that one real quick, or go over that. But yes, everybody except for one has a smart controller delay on their irrigation. I mean, that's, to me, is good. Okay? And then as far as low drip, there's survey says that's about 2 of y'all are doing it, 4 or 6 of y'all are in the zone as far as utilizing it. That's great. Audits, you're doing audit system audits. Yes, 13 of y'all. And here again, all on this one doing annual. Yes, everybody's doing an annual, and that's obvious. Irrigation system audit. Okay. And then fertilizer, y'all are gonna have y'all already did that, right? Or going to, okay. And there you learn a little bit more detail. I won't cover it here. I'm just gonna glaze over that, but according to this, 1 pound or less actual nitrogen to 1,000 square feet is what is recommended. Okay. And how often should you fertilizer? It says at least 2, fall and spring. And one of the things that I will tell you, be very, very cautious on that, because Friday I was at the San Antonio River Authority's lab, water quality lab, and a lot of their testing is runoff from nitrogen and phosphorus running into the creeks and causing blooms into the creeks, which eats up the oxygen, which kills the fish. And so, and we're the number one problem as far as homeowners is putting too much. A lot of times folks will say, you know, it says use this much, and they say, oh, if I use double, it'll be just as good. But that's not the case. Okay, fertilizer that contain low phosphorus, 13, you really do look at that, you should be looking at, it's NPK. The P is what they're looking at, you want that lower number. Okay, I won't cover this one either, just to let you know, but I will let you know, there are some materials out there that you could use. Again, it's from Austin, the good guy versus the bad guy. Very, very informative on what bugs are, you know, just because you see a creepy crawly, it might be a good guy. Okay. What are the principles being to control insects and disease? Here, are you using culture, biological, or mechanical? And I always think mechanical is a fly swatter, you know, but chemical is what we want to get away from, because some of it sometimes is lasts in the environment more than we want, and then we put it in the garden, and then we're digesting it in some way or some form. Okay, I do know that these paper wasps, me and my wife always have this problem about paper wasp. If she sees one, she thinks it should be gone. I say if it's not in the doorway, it's out of sight, out of mind, leave it alone, because they are beneficial in eating certain bugs. Also, knowing you know, we all hate the tomato hornworm, and actually it's a moth that actually comes out of it, and there's one, and I'll show you how I'm putting the two together in a bit. Okay, here's another, do you promote beneficial insects? I don't know about that's a beneficial insect, but I like to see it. It is pollinating my blueberries in my yard. It is a white line sphinx. As a matter of fact, I did see it on my lemon tree not too long ago, and I do have it in video. So, when you do look at a pest problem, hopefully when you do talk about it in the class, that you look at it, you try to look at it from a very organic point of view before you get to the chemical point of view. One of my number one problems, and I don't know you in Wilson County, but my number one problem is cutter ants. The cutter ants are just horrendous. So if I'm not out there daily, it looks like they will take over the world. I don't know, did anybody else have that problem, cutter ants? Okay. So I've come up with ways of doing it where they cannot get to it. I tend to go more containers that they cannot climb. I'll do diatomaceous earth, which is more organic. Yes, I could put chemicals out there that will, as soon as they walk about it. But being that I'm eating all my edibles, and they seem to be in my edible side of the house and not in my native plants side, is, knock on wood, this last year I had none in the front yard, but they were all in the backyard with my garden. Everything I wanted to eat, they were there eating it before I got there. But I'm trying to figure out why in the native, in the front yard, they're not there. They used to be there 3 years ago, and I just slowly took care of them with diatomaceous earth, and they haven't come back. The only thing I could think of is the grass is greener in the front, and it's thicker. They like pads in my garden. I do have a lot of mulch. They like my pathing. They like to go down my path. If I leave my water hose out, they like to follow my water hose. So I like to take them, so I take my water hose and I take it to where I don't want that plant to, so I take them the other way. But they're smart. They'll figure it out. And I do traps. I do a lot of traps. If I'm trimming let's say I trim my lemon tree, I'll put them in a basket, and I know that they're going to hit that because they smell it, they see it, and they're hitting it. So I follow them to their nest, and that's how I get them. So I give them a little bait that way. Fertilizer and chemicals. Most of y'all seem to be doing okay on that. Okay, and then. So learning the good from the bad. I do use this app called iNaturalist. Anybody use iNaturalist yet? Okay, good. Are y'all master naturalists also? Yes? Inspiring one? Okay, I need to talk to y'all. No? I'm a big user of iNaturalist. It's citizen science. The other class I do is happening next week, Wednesday. It is on a Zoom call, and it's just it's citizen science work, but you learn a lot about plants and animals, and you see it out in the wild, like Turk's cap. I've seen Turk's cap out in the wild. I've seen salvia out in the wild. And when you start seeing plants in the wild, you start saying, yes, that plant needs to be in my garden because it's blooming in the heat of the summer. It's nobody's watering it. It's out in the wilderness. The deer are not messing with it. So that's why I take to iNaturalist and figure it out. So if anybody's interested in going to that, I know y'all don't need continuing education hours, but it is a good way to learn about plants and even bugs and even inventory your plants that you have in your garden already. And I did use it when I did first moved into our property. I used it to determine what plants were there already, because there was one plant that I had never seen. I lived in Stone Oak area originally, and then when I moved to Wilson County, there was a plant that I had never seen. I even took it to the expert at San Antonio River Authority, and they had never seen it either. And it took like 2 weeks for them to come back to me. When I had this app, it was like in seconds I knew what it was. It was a Polyphoxia hookeria, which grew in sand, which was unique to our area. And we have those that do poly mansion. Anybody does volunteer work at poly mansion? Last year they did we actually did an iNaturalist walk with them, and we actually walked their 200-acre and identified plants and so forth. And so that was a good walk. Hopefully we'll do it again this year. Come end of April is what we're targeting. Compost, I'll cover it in a bit. I do want to take a break. I'll go in more detail on that. Those are composting, Great. Who's composting? Okay. All right. You will, okay. Anybody vermicomposting? Okay, you are. I know you are. Okay, and then rain harvesting, y'all will have a class in rain harvesting. Okay, I won't get into that. There is a book, and I know I've been to his class just recently in Wilson County. There is also a book that you can get. You can download rain harvesting. And actually, you could actually order that one, and they will send you the book. I didn't bring it because I know that y'all are covering it, but it is a very detailed book on how to rain harvest.
We're doing rainwater harvesting on April 15th.
April 15th, okay.
Can you
So,
order that rain harvesting book from Take Care of Texas?
yes, and it is free online. Yeah, and I think, and if you want, order for the class. I'll just say, I mean, they'll send you the whole, I forget how many you could do at a time, like 10 probably for rain harvesting. Everything has a measured time. I know the other one this other one was 25, and then that one might be 10 at a time, but I just waited 2 weeks and I reordered again. And that's basically, I think, all of that. Just remember, there's 10 items. You really want to make sure you're mulching, check your irrigation, composting, your pest management. Those are all things that we should home in on as far as master gardeners and so forth. Okay, and that's it. Sorry, I'm rushing through it. I'm a little 10 minutes over, but that was Dennis's 10 minutes over. But all right, and when we come back, we'll do composting. All right. Okay, composting. Composting, I'm going to try to get the vermicomposting if all possible. I will be pushing it. I won't go over this. Okay. Composting, and hopefully I'll get to vermicomposting. And I feel like I'm speed dating here or something. But anyway, this is basically what the Texas Take Care of Texas provides. And I had stickers also for that. Were they out there? I left a pound of stickers also. They're gone already? I gave you stickers of this little guy.
Of what little guy?
This Texas guy.
What little Texas guy?
We're not seeing anything on this.
Okay, you're not seeing anything?
Yeah, slideshow from the beginning. Slideshow.
Okay, good, right here. High five.
Still nothing on the screen.
Oh, yeah. Y'all see that? Sorry about that. Okay, skip that. Okay, those stickers, I had stickers out there. I thought I gave them out. But, all right, why compost, the layman's term, what they'll say from Take Care of Texas, save money, save time and effort, and help your community. And we'll cover that in more detail. But from a dollars and cents point of view, this is what you'll see. Fertilizer has gone up tremendously. This is actually as of 2022. I'm missing 2 more years. I'm pretty sure it's getting even higher than that. Another reason to compost, because it does save you utilizing fertilizer. Another reason, where I was trained by the state of Texas of Alliance of Recycling. I got to think about that. STAR. And it was to reduce the landfill. So what is composting? Composting is basically, there's very different definitions, but basically it's breaking down organic material into reusable humus, where the soil or plants could utilize that with microbes and so forth. Who said they compost? Okay, well, technically, I say everybody compost because our gut is also a composter for our body. You know, if you look at it, that's the compost of the soil and plants. But if you look at our probiotics, if you have a good gut health, you probably have a good immune system. If plants have a good immune system in their soil, they'll be a little bit more pest resistant to pests because they'll look stronger. And the bugs tend to look at, the plants tend to look at, bugs tend to look at plants a little bit different, or insects. They'll look at through UV lights and they'll see a sick one versus a fresh one, and they'll pick on the sick one first. It's just nature's way. Another reason is this is just a quick look at where we're sending our landfill stuff to, trim wet. Let me get caught up with myself here. Yard waste, food scraps, and wood was, when I did the training back in 2016, this was, they call this compostable. I tell you, don't eat this before you talk. Wood, yeah, you could, I use wood also into my compost, but I use it shredded down. Paper, they didn't say to use it, but I use it a lot. Cardboard. I don't use Xerox paper because when they laser prints, it does put little plastics down, and then over time you'll start getting that into your garden. We talk about, you've heard in the news, probably microplastics, so I try to minimize my microplastics into my garden, into my vegetable, or into my landscape. So I do use cardboard a lot, but I go to like Sam's and I'll pull from the shelves, from between the paper goods. They have these long cardboards. I don't use, my wife orders a lot of Amazon boxes. I don't spend time tearing off tape and so forth. I do have a recycling for cardboard, and that's where that goes. But it has to be simple. From a gardening point of view, this is what I like to say. That's why I glossed over the other one. Compost benefits. Compost inoculates the soil with bacteria and fungus to hold soil particles together. So it is a very important part. Like I said, it is kind of the probiotics of our plants. So organic materials added to the soil provide structure. Yeah, if you're in sand, it provides structure. It holds that water a little bit longer. If you're in mulch, if you're in clay, what happens with clay during the summer? It starts cracking and starts spreading. Well, I bet you start putting compost in there, it'll start mellowing it out. It mellows out clay soil, and so it works both in both types of soil. Encourages root growth, and that's and provides that. There's an exchange between roots and microbes, where the plant is taking in the CO2 from the atmosphere, producing oxygen and UV light from the sun, and producing a glucose down to it uses it as energy to produce. But about 30% of that is actually going down to the root system to feed the microbes. And the microbes tend to go closer to the plant. And what are the microbes doing to the plant? They are chelating minerals, and then you have other I don't know, I have a picture of it, but you have other protozoa and so forth coming and eating them up, and they're sloshing all that minerals over, and that's the process that's going on. So there's that sugar is called exudates. Anybody heard exudates before? That is the sugar that the plants provide to the microbes. And that's how they interact in the biosymbiotic relationship. Okay? The other one I like to talk about, when you do send green material to the landfill, you do produce methane, which is a gas that's a little bit 10, 22 times more dangerous as a greenhouse gas than CO2. So it's a little bit more harmful, another reason why you don't want to do it. And here's an example of, I did this several years ago. I was really composting around a tree, and I didn't know there was some bluebonnet seeds, and I don't throw bluebonnet seeds out. These are just native to where I live. And the ones that were in the compost area, you could see they grew like 12 inches, and where the ones that were outside of that range were about a foot over, they didn't get any, it was like 6 inches. So that's another good example where compost just provides some benefits. Okay, and then here's that, what I was just talking about, organic matter. You got these microbes, bacteria, and fungi that are kind of coming over here to the root system, they're being fed, and then you have these protozoas, nematodes. So this is just a soil food web, very important to our plants. Every plant on the planet, I would say not every plant, but I'd say the majority of plants that I'm trying to remember the actual percentage, it was in the 90s, like 95% or so, need microbes to survive. And I guess those that are in water probably don't need as much, water plants. But our garden, our landscape, they need the food web. That food web is very important, so if you're using a lot of pesticides, you're probably killing these microbes and so forth, and just destroying the soil web that's in there. And that's what I like to say, this is the gut of your soil, of your plants, that is very vital. So you take our guts out, take no bacteria, as they say, we have more microbes on our body than we have human cells. Has everybody heard that? There's like a very high number, and I know I tell that to fifth graders, "Ooh, I gotta go wash my hands." And I said, no, it's a fact of life. We do have more microbes on our body now than we do human cells. I forget the ratios, but anyway, so that's very, very important. We're going to talk about this area right here, and I'll start getting a little bit geeky. Y'all finish at 1 o'clock, right? Okay. Y'all what?
At 12:50.
12:50. Oh, okay. All right. There's another speaker. Okay. Okay. Thank you for clarifying that. So there's 4 basic things in here: water, carbon, nitrogen, oxygen. Those are your 4 basics. So when you're thinking composting, I want you to think of these 4 things. And this is, if you're a 5th grader going through STAR test, I don't know if they still do the STAR test. This is one of the, okay, they still do this. This is part of your questionnaire. Anyway, so very important. I am going to be talking about aerobic composting, and there is one called anaerobic, which if I get to, which I doubt, is anaerobic. You can anaerobic compost, but I'm not into that. It is a Japanese method, and there is a business in San Antonio that actually does that. And basically what you're trying to do, everybody's going to have different feedstock. I could tell you my feedstock, different from you. You know, we all ate different breakfasts this morning or not. So everybody has a different method, and we'll get into a little bit more deeper on that. But we want to combine this oxygen, water, and carbon and nitrogen. And you may hear me say carbon for browns. I'll say browns or greens. Greens is I'm meaning nitrogen. So I talked to 5th graders and 4th graders. I'll talk to them more in greens and browns. Also, when you start putting these together, you start producing carbon dioxide. And I know if you're like a 5th grader, they'll say, oh, I thought that was bad for the environment. Naturally, it occurs in nature. CO2 is a natural thing that does happen, and plants do need it. And it's normally the CO2 right underneath the plant that is being absorbed by the leaves, by the underleaves. One thing that the person that taught the class for composting said bugs. I don't like the word bugs. I've learned as a master naturalist is compost is decomposed by decomposers. There is a certain bugs, microbes, bugs that actually decompose. And knowing those bugs is just like you know your good insects versus your bad insects in your garden. Okay, so browns, carbon. So these are the browns, leaves, straw, sawdust, woody chips, newspaper and so forth. Now newspaper, I will caution you, if it's shiny, don't use it. It probably has some chemicals in it. Newspaper is now printed in soy ink. They used to do a little bit of toxic ink in it way back when, and people would touch it, and it wasn't good for them. Cardboard, you heard where I get my cardboard. So those are all browns. Greens are like vegetables, coffee grounds. Now coffee grounds, I know, if you're like a fifth grader, they'll say, that ain't green. Okay, so there are some exceptions to the rule. It's what they have content inside. They have a lot of nitrogen. Tea, fresh grass clippings, fresh grass clippings, I would say, don't cut your lawn with seeds in it, especially Bermuda. If you have Bermuda seeds and you put it into your compost, you will have now Bermuda seeds when you put that compost into your garden. So far I've been lucky. That has not happened in my yard, knock on wood. So they are separated by front and back. Also, one other thing on here, eggshells is not a really true nitrogen. I was going to bring some books and I couldn't find my books on it, but there's a Rodeo book of composting, very good book. It does break up all a lot more that I have here as far as feedstock into a compost. Eggshells is really considered a zero. It doesn't have carbon, doesn't have nitrogen, but they threw it on here in this infographic. But so what are we trying to do? So we're trying to blend these carbon and nitrogen together. If you blend too much carbon, you'll end up with cold compost. If you blend just right, the Goldilocks carbon and nitrogen ratio, you'll end up with a hot compost. And we'll talk about it more. As you do vermicomposting, you really do want to do kind of a cold composting, and that's blending a little bit more carbon than you do nitrogen. Okay, and then likewise with composting, hot composting, and I'll get a little bit more geeky in a little bit. Okay, so some of the top questions I always get, and even I did this class Saturday, believe it or not, and this was asked, what are some of the top questions? Should I throw in onions? Yes. Citrus. Just don't make it, a ton of onions or a ton of citrus. Especially, I don't throw any into my vermicomposting. I do put it into my compost bins, and then I put it in eventually probably into the vermicomposting bins. So that's okay. I did do a compost review at a restaurant, and they wanted to know why their compost was full of roaches. And yes, I don't want to eat there. I didn't eat there. I just reviewed. One of the big problems was they would just throw all their onions, everything coming from the kitchen, and put all their greens in there and just kept on piling, thought that would be a good compost pile. That is not the case. It is really a ratio between carbon and nitrogen, and knowing those ratios is very important. Oak leaves is another one that I always get a lot of questions. I tend to shred mine, what little I have. Actually, I stopped, my old house I used to have a lot of oak trees. I shred them and then put them into my compost. Also manures, anybody have chickens?
Yeah.
Okay, chickens. Chickens is very good. It's very high in nitrogen. We'll talk about it in a little bit there too. Horses. Horse manure, okay, horses, okay. Definitely live in Wilson County. Because every fifth neighbor has a horse in my neighborhood. So manures, horses, they get inoculated, and I tend to, when I do get horse manure, I'll tend to put it aside for like 3 months to let the antibiotics go through and so forth, and then I'll introduce it at the minimum into my garden. Another one that's really, really new, and I was kind of avoiding this one, to me, I started using it recently, is using biochar. versus, and I'm not talking about wood ash because people will ask me about wood ash. As a matter of fact, this is my compost. I didn't show it off earlier. But here's a biochar. You notice there's no white residue on it. When it has white residue, that's telling me that it's introduced with oxygen. What we want to do is we want biochar that's done by pyrolysis, which is really charcoal when you think about it. Charcoal is made like that, carbon filters is made by that with no oxygen. So they're actually heating up a piece of wood to where it's hitting above 500 to 600 degrees, and it's actually causing it to go into combustion and just taking all everything else out, or gassing everything else out except for the carbon, and the carbon stays behind. And that's what, if you could introduce that into your compost. It's been used. Has anybody used biochar or heard of biochar? Okay.
I don't understand it. What is this? Is this a good marketing scheme or what? I mean,
No.
what's the purpose?
If you talk to the indigenous people of Amazon 5,000 years ago, or probably not that long, but they used to use biochar in their soil, and you've got to inoculate it. You cannot use it straight. It's not I don't sell this, but I do use it. It does cause the compost to last longer, and I could actually do a presentation off biochar. But it provides, when you look at this, a micro looks at this as a condo versus where no biochar. It's like having a subdivision, single house dwelling. So it does provide a source where microbes could stay and use the carbon. You'll find that microbes need carbon to survive, as well as nitrogen, and it's very useful. It's very light. I would crush this a little bit more than what's here, just an example. They don't really sell this at all, and it's really something that the Amazon indigenous people have been using, and they've been back to those soils, and which is very alkaline, and they're using this and they're composting. They find that they're growing anything. And it's still there. But anyway, let me push on. Prohibited stuff, just common sense, anything. One of the key things here, dog and cat manure or poop, you don't really want to use that. I'm not into human solid waste. I know some people do that. Now, the reason why I say that, and you may get it and you may not know it. If you buy compost from some of the compost places around here, make sure that they don't have biosolids. And what they mean by biosolids, that means that they're going through a sewer plant, and then the sewer plant goes through a process of their own composting. And I've toured sewer plants. They go through a composting, they aerate it, and then they go through anaerobic process, and then they dry it out, and then they sell that to composters, and they mix it blend it into landscape compost. And I know in Austin, when I was in Austin, it was called Dillo Dirt. I don't know what it's called here, but Dillo Dirt does have biosolids in there. So just an FYI, don't shoot the messenger. Okay? But what I do want to get to is just the formula, which will probably make more sense to you over here or everybody. Okay, we talked about this formula. Now I'm going to talk about going down to a molecular level. Everything, every feedstock, every item in here that we'll talk about will have a ratio of carbon to nitrogen, or I should say nitrogen. Well, here it's like 30 means 30 carbons to 1 nitrogen. Let me put it out, carbon to nitrogen. Okay, so that's where you're trying to get it hot. You want to do that ratio, and I know this not make sense yet. And then if you want a cold compost, you put a lot of carbon in it. It's probably a 50-to-1 ratio. And then if you start mixing in air and water, and when I mean water, I mean moisture that's about, if you were to get a sponge, you put it in water and then you wring it out and it's still moist, that's about the percentage that you want your compost to be. You don't want it sopping wet at all. You don't want it in the rain. You want it just where it's just like a sponge that has just got wrung out. Okay. As far as oxygen, ideally about 10%. Microbes could survive in 5% or greater. And that's why when you compress soil, you're really squeezing out the air for the microbes, and they're suffocating in there, down there. So that's why as a kid, I used to say, "Don't step on the grass." Now you know why. Now I know why. So you really want to have, if you want to prevent your compost from stinking, what do you think you should have? More nitrogen or more carbon? Carbon, right? Very good. So carbon is very good. So a lot of people will say, which one's a better problem to have? Yes, have more carbon. So, talk to this guy. He says his compost does not stink. And the reason being is carbon is very important. And going back to marketing, it's not really marketing because it's like air. You don't market air unless you need the oxygen or something. But carbon is very important to our soil besides the NPK. It is a rule of thumb in composting that I have is, number one, when I start composting, I may have, let's say I cleaned up my garden, I'll make sure I have browns, and then I'll put my greens, whatever I've trimmed. If it's green, it's next layer, then I'll put carbon on top, let's say leaves or something. I do still have leaves from the fall, 2 more bags. And so I'm stacking, I'm doing like a lasagna method. So which one do you think I should end up with? Should I leave nitrogen on top or carbon on top? Carbon. Always cover it with carbon because carbon doesn't stink. You think about filters are made out of carbon, water filters are made out of carbon. It cleans the water out or makes it look clear. Another thing to remember is shred as much as possible. Use your lawnmower with a bagger. If I'm doing I'm doing cardboard, I use a paper shredder, 12 paper or better. Yesterday I was at Sam's. They sell for like $60. Yeah, about $59, $60. I shred my cardboard before I put it in. I just recently got that like 3 years ago, and it works fine. Okay, so here's the basic theory I want to get to, and I got 5 more minutes. If you take everything down, everything has a number. So fresh leaves has 37-1. So back there you said you got a pile of mulch, and it had a lot of fresh leaves. That's a 37-1. And then you got your manure. Chicken manure is 6-1. That means it's very hot. You don't want to throw that directly into your garden. And then if you look at cardboard, it's a 563-1. And then you got your manures and so forth and cow manure. So you can look at your cow manure 30-1. It's really, it may be running hot by itself. Just remember, hot compost is a ratio of 30-1. So when you start putting your browns and greens together, mathematically, you're supposed to end up with a 30-1. And when you do, that temperature just rises up completely. So when you mix this side with this side and you have a good ratio, and when you do the math, let's say you put chicken manure with sawdust or something, so that number will come up to a ratio. And then if you start to hit that, you'll start hitting that heat temperature of 160 and so forth. Okay, does that make sense? Okay, but it looks complicated. You're not going to do that every time. I know that. So this is what I do. I make my pile and I use a thermometer, and I check a day later, and I'll check to see what the temperature is, and I'll know that, hey, did I put the right number or not? So I just go by gut feeling. It's like cooking, right? Cooking. It's cooking. After a while, you just learn your intuition. Your intuition is to, hey, put more carbon if I'm mixing coffee grounds. So Here's a little formula, there's a little calculator online by Urban Worm Farm, and they kind of give you the, if you have dry leaves and coffee grounds, you only need to get to 29 to 1. It's 3 gallons to 1 gallon, so that's your volume. But they've done the math to end up with at 29 to 1. And I do use a lot of leaves to coffee grounds, and I'll show you in a bit if I get there. So you can see the numbers. So in my worm bin, I try to have these ratios come out, and just gives you an idea of what's going on. So cardboard, I could use less cardboard to without 1 gallon of coffee grounds. Okay, and then where should you put your compost bin? Okay, where was that? By the front door. Okay, yeah. Dennis said don't put it in the front. He's absolutely right, because in my case, I got to make sure it doesn't. Not only do you don't want to put it in the front, we have our kitchen to the back, our kitchen window. So I don't want my wife looking out the window and seeing my compost bin either. So that was number 2. You didn't cover that one, but you don't want to look out the kitchen window or the living room window and see your compost bin. So mine is out of sight, out of mind, and that's the way I designed it. It is out of sight, out of mind. This is not my yard, but this is just an example of where you should put it. In the shade, I do have it in the shade. I do have it camouflaged away from no windows, not even the bathroom windows or any windows from inside have view of it. But these are different types of method of composting. Now keep in mind, one thing very important up here, although I went through that measurements, in order to start composting, you must have a 3 by 3 by 3 minimum to get up that heat level higher as far as 140 or above. Okay, if you don't have that, you won't get there. And I've had people come and look at their compost, and I said, well, where's your 3 by 3 by 3? And it was all flat. Thinking that it would compost. Here's one that I know one of the community gardens use. I forget which one. They're starting to use this. I used to get these at wholesale, and I would give it to sell it back to master gardeners as wholesale also, nonprofit. And these are very durable. This is what I use now. I really do like them. They're better than what we used to have at Red Barn. You don't see that anymore, but it was somebody's project for hours. But that's what I use. Layering, I like to layer mine, and it always end up with carbon on top. And here's my example of, let me see if I could get this running. So that's, it was 50 degrees, 54 degrees outside, and there's my geoband. I did mix, this one was leaf and coffee grounds. If you go to Starbucks, some Starbucks do put their coffee grounds in the back and in a special trash can where people could just come and use it for their garden. You can see this one went up all the way up to 152. Okay, so it is possible to get it as hot as you can there. So there's a good example. It does happen. Practice what you preach, and there's one practice that I do. So sorting it, I do sort it out. I did make this screener, and I do screen it, run it through there. Also, composting. You could aerate your compost. We talked about microbes. I forget the actual number, but if you think of a teaspoon of garden soil, probably has about 1,000, I don't know the exact number, but 1,000 microbes. But if you go into compost, it probably gets up to 8,000. But if you compost tea it, it'll actually produce like 15,000 microbes. So it just exponentially grows. Okay, so that's another thing that you could do that we could talk about in a whole class session. Okay, with that, 2 more. 2 more. Actually, and this is another thing that why we want to mulch. You see this fungal matter versus bacterial matter. Our vegetables are more bacterial dominant, and you can make compost tea based off that. And with that said, we won't go over troubleshooting, and I will turn it over to you.
Thank you. You can get the PowerPoint later and finish it.
Yeah, the PowerPoint has the...
Right.
All right.
Thank you, Dennis.
Jeff, you can check with him in a few minutes. He'll stick around.